All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everybody to tonight's Region 12 Board of Education meeting, October 17, 2016. Rebecca, can we take attendance, please?
Anthony Amato. Here. Valerie Anderson. Alan Brown. Yes. Gregory Cava.
Yes, here.
Rebecca Devine, I'm here. Michelle Gora. Here. James Hirschfield.
Here.
Stephanie Kolnick. Here. Jennifer Pody. Here. Lisa Roosh.
Here.
Michael Sinatra. Here. Peter Tagley.
Peter's here.
Peter Tagley.
All right, everyone is present. Thank you. First thing I'd like to do is welcome the two new board members from Roxbury, Lisa Roosh and Stephanie Kolnick. They're here tonight. They've been voted on by the town of Roxbury. Is it Roosh? Is that Roush? That's what I thought. Okay.
Roush, I thought so.
Welcome, ladies, and we look forward to your participation on the board, and I know that Roxbury will have two new good members, so thank you. If there's any questions that you have of me or any other board member, please don't hesitate to ask. All right, item 3, opportunity for public to comment on agenda items. Is there anyone who would like to address us? You have to go to the lectern, tell us your name and what town you're from. Anyone? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, good evening. Is this working? Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Heidi Adele. I'm a teacher here at Shepaug. I teach French along with my colleague Eleni Bukas. I'm talking to you tonight because the French trip is on the agenda, and I just wanted to address the board and the public to assure you that the student safety is our #1 concern. We realize that France is a continued target for terrorist attacks and that it's particularly easy to hit soft targets. I lived in Paris for many years myself, during which time there were terrorist attacks. I still have family there, and I follow the news very closely, so I'm definitely familiar with the situation. Travel inherently involves risk. We believe that the families who signed their children up for the trip took the risks into consideration. That being said, I know the board has to weigh the information it has and decide what amount of risk is acceptable to ensure the safety of our students. We will support any decision the board makes regarding the trip, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Heidi, if you would just remind the board, when is the trip planned?
For spring break of 2017.
And how many, do you have any?
As of right now, there are 19 students signed up and 1 parent, and there were more parents getting ready to sign up. So.
All right. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Yes, that's on the superintendent's.
Yeah.
Greg?
Well, actually, we can wait for the general discussion of it.
All right, is there anyone else? All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Anyone else who wants to address the board? All right. Yes.
I'm going to speak to item number 9, the Ag STEM, continuing Ag STEM. Last Thursday at the Washington, the tri-meeting at the Washington Town Hall, where the Washington Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, and the Board of Ed asked some questions and also allowed people in the audience to ask questions. And I asked Dr. Cosentino if she was aware that Danbury was building an addition to accommodate. She previously stated that Danbury would not have seats for 400 students. And I had heard that Danbury was indeed building they call it the freshman wing. And I just wanted to clarify, I said that the cost was $75 million, but it was only $50 million. I had that confused with Stanford. But they are building a 69,000 square foot freshman wing to accommodate, their growing population. Also, concerning the application numbers that the State Department of Education is also concerned about, the application and enrollment numbers. And I went over the data that Dr. Cosentino and others compiled for the State Board of Ed. And if you take all of the application numbers and consider that all those will be enrolled in the program, although I seriously have reservations about enrollment equating to actual enrollment, or applications equating to actual enrollment. And if they are enrolled, will they stay enrolled for the 4-year duration? At any rate, I took this year's and went back 4 years, and Brookfield had a total of 12. Danbury is capped at 15, that's 27. New Fairfield is 13, that's 40. New Milford, 47, that's 87. Newtown is 17, that's 104. Region 12, 16, 120, and Sherman is 7, 127. That's if you take, and from 2017 into the future, the enrollment and application projections actually turn out to be a lot less. Currently, there are only 61 students from our 6 catchment towns and our 3 in-region towns attending Nonawag. The other problem is over the next 7 years, 7 of the 9 towns will also experience student population decline. New Fairfield, for instance, loses 140. New Milford loses 317 students between now and 2024. Newtown loses 532 students. Region 12 will lose 96, and Sherman will definitely lose some. I didn't get the numbers on that, but this is another example of where I think the opposition, those in opposition, don't foresee, the enrollment getting any better. And if 127 is all that can be mustered, it's kind of like spending all this money and subsidizing all these students, from out of region. If we're not going to reach our break-even number, could be a big financial disaster for the Region 12 taxpayers.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bonaghetto. It's been 4 minutes. It's supposed to be 3 minutes a person. Do you have anything else just to wrap up?
Just one quick one.
Yes.
I asked at the Board of Ed meeting prior to the school budget, this year's school budget referendum. I asked if, since we were paying Sherman's busing, would that someday equate, if AgSTEM comes, would that equate to us perhaps paying another town's busing, one of the catchment towns' busing? And the answer was emphatically no. But there is a rumor afoot that we will, if we don't reach our adequate enrollment, we will subsidize either through a tuition break or busing from Danbury. And if Danbury is included, then perhaps some of the other towns might want a piece of the action. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Doug Delisle, and I live in Bridgewater. Just a couple of very brief comments tonight. Erica Ryland furnished, I believe you have in your possession, I thought I saw an email list where all of the members have been copied on Erica Ryland's recent notes about the cost of this project. She projected 3 different scenarios over, I believe, the next 20 years. Every one of them, it went from, I think, roughly a $2 million loss in the first scenario to 17 or 18 million loss in the third projection. These are serious things, students. I mean, we're middle-class people. I mean, I know there are a lot of wealthy people in our area that maybe are not too involved and think that it's cheap to live in this area to begin with. It's not. we're metropolitan New York. Middle-class people like me are concerned about making our mortgage payments and things like that. I know it doesn't come up too often, but it's a concern for me, especially as an older person. Also, as one of the people just mentioned, the idea of discounting, putting numbers out and then discounting it kind of like sub rosa is not a fair thing. The public needs to be apprised of anything, the true cost of these things, without discounting for free busing and things of this nature here that could be gamed to some extent. So that's basically it. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Holly Fleur in Roxbury. I just had 3 quick questions. I see 2 terms being used, agri-science and agri-STEM. Is there a distinction, or is there a distinction without a difference here?
The latter, I would say.
So there is...
And there's a new term that the state is using, which I don't have in front of me. I'm sorry? Anthony, go ahead.
It's ASTI, I believe, is the acronym. Pat, is that right?
Yes, and I can, if you give me a chance, I can find it and
All
let
right,
you know when I
anything
find
else?
what it means.
Ma'am, we're not here to answer questions. Do you have any comments you want to make to us?
Well, allow me to rephrase the question then. I have noticed that there are 2 different terms being used, agri-science and agri-STEM. When you get to this item on the agenda, I think it would be helpful if there was an explanation. That's comment number 1. Comment number 2 is when you get to that item on the agenda, would you be good enough to tell us if, in fact, there's a material change to this entire plan, will it necessitate an additional referendum? And item number 3, previously, a number of you mentioned to some of us that there had been a variety of alternatives to this program that had been discussed. And Dr. Costantino, I believe you said that the only alternative was to close the school, which none of us are in favor of. Could you tell us at some point what those alternatives were? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead.
It's now called by the state the Agricultural Science and Technology Education Center. So ASTI is what it's called. But STEM, of course, you all know, is science, technology, engineering, and math. Agri-STEM is what we've been commonly referring to it.
All right, thank you, Doctor. Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tim Laughlin. I'm a resident of Washington. I'm sorry if I'm a little tired. I just welcomed home our newborn son, and so my wife asked me to come up here and just say a few things. I'd like to thank the board and the administration for their continued analysis of the AgSTEM program. I think that we've had a continued dialogue. There have been so many opportunities and public forums for input. There have been exhaustive documents submitted to this board, both against and in support of this project. We've had a public referendum. We've had multiple hearings. And yet again, we're here today with folks asking questions and doing the same thing. I think it's important for me to say that I am a young parent. I own a home with my wife. This school system and this school is an important part of our community. In fact, I believe that a school system, and in this case, our regional school system, is really a heart that is part of a bunch of other organs, and the success of the school system contributes to the success of our local economies, the ability for us to attract new taxpayers, and the abilities for young families. Many of people here tonight, you can see them with kids in t-shirts. I don't think that you've had a steady stream of people coming in here and talking to you because they have young families, and 7 o'clock on a weeknight is tough, as I have figured out in the last 72 hours. I would just finalize my comments by saying we have had this discussion. We have very clearly said as voters we want this project to happen, and it is essential that it does, because I think the alternative is closing the school. Right? There isn't really a lot we have left unless we can increase the student enrollment, increase the base of people coming, and we do that in 2 ways. One, by attracting students to the district through a state-of-the-art agri-science academy that has been approved by the state, and 2, by having a school system that attracts young families like myself to buy homes here. I don't want to be the person living on a street with a bunch of New Yorkers or, frankly, with a bunch of retirees. I want my kid to play with other kids, and I think that this project will certainly provide that opportunity well into the future. And I hope you continue to move forward and make sure we can get this project done and get shovel ready. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, everybody. Christy Hardy from Roxbury. I wrote stuff down tonight, so I wasn't just talking with my hands. As a community, we have a social responsibility to provide the best possible education for the youth of all of our community. At this time, we have the opportunity to ensure this level of education continues by moving forward with becoming shovel-ready for the Ag STEM program. I ask that as each of you start to discuss with each other in the next couple of weeks the program, I ask that you think of the small little kids that are running around at Washington and at Burnham and at Booth on the playground each day. And I ask for you to think about Tim's little cutie, Leo, and think about the fact that these families want to keep these babies in our community. They want to raise them within our community, knowing how valuable our community is. Losing families because of our level of education becomes compromised just isn't an option. Please continue to the forward growth of Region 12 and become shovel ready. And I want to always thank you for your continued support of all of the children of Region 12. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Janet Boniuto from Washington. A couple comments from the previous speaker. We want this school to survive and thrive. We've been kind of painted with a broad brush of comments about how I think I will quote Dr. Cosentino in a recent Voices article, where she said, people against the Ag STEM program who want to close Shepaug are not thinking it through. We have thought it through. We are questioning the numbers that are coming to this school. We were told that 196 is a break-even number. We have to attract 196 out-of-region students. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. We're very worried about that. We want this school to survive and thrive. We just are worried that we're not being told the truth, A, and we're worried that you're going to go ahead and do this, and then it's going to really backfire on everybody. I just want to read to you something from a Prouda report. It was dated 2014, and it's concerning the Nonnewaug High School enrollment. I project that Nonnewaug High School enrollment will decline by about 21% from 748 students in 2014 to about 570 students in 2024. These high school figures include non-residents in the agriculture science program, and that was from a Peter Prouda report dated 2014. My suggestion is to all of you that we need to hire a professional demographer to look at our catchment areas and to find out who is coming, how you work the numbers to see who is coming. We need a professional, unbiased opinion about this. I think that we have spent a lot of money in other areas. It seems like we are almost up to $500,000 on the Ag STEM expenditures. We hire we hire architects, and now we are told that the architectural plans have to be revisited. This is very worrisome for me. This money could be better spent maybe working on our science labs that desperately need to be renovated. My last comment is, I know Castle Booze is going to be here to explain how we will make some of the project go into our own footprint. And I hope that you will explain to everyone what you are, where you are going in the building with this. What are we going to give up for our in-region students by taking Ag STEM into our existing footprint? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Jessica Granger from Danbury. My daughter, Samantha, here attends booth 3. She's in 1st grade. She loves the school and loves her teacher, her classmates, and all the great friends that we've made, right? I came here tonight just to reiterate again some things that I've spoke about in the past. And also to say that we have finally sold our home in Danbury. It was very stressful. I know everyone looks forward to our update and our story at all these meetings, so we could probably make a movie out of it. But it was very hard and stressful. I also have a handicapped husband at home, which makes things extra challenging. But I have someone watching him tonight while I'm here with my daughter out late on a school night. To again reiterate, I very much hope this program goes through. We're looking forward to moving into our new old Roxbury home sometime very soon, hopefully in the next couple weeks. And I have a great quote that I saw that I wanted to share. A society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they will never sit in. Greek proverb. This is a great community. We love it. We see the future, and the people here should see the same thing. It's not about being selfish and saying how could this potentially impact me right now. It's about looking towards to the future. And by simply renovating a science lab, you're not going to draw new families into town. You need to offer something unique, different, and new that fits the region, which is what the Ag STEM program is. And for these reasons, I hope the program goes through. We're vested in it. We've put our hard-earned money into this plan by moving here. We know others will come. And the other area towns are, you mentioned Danbury, that maybe they're not going to be sending students because they're adding on an addition. Danbury is huge. My younger brother went there. I chose to go to Nonawag at the time. It's a small college, and it's getting very crowded. One of the reasons why we left, and it's getting more and more crowded. When we were selling our home, every single buyer looking at our home was from New York City, Bronx, Queens, Long Island. Every single one. People are wanting to get away from the high taxes and the chaos and hustle and bustle in New York and move up here. More people are coming. People are going to get pushed out of Danbury looking for something else. And this might be the right fit, and people just have to think about the future and not about today and being selfish. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Paula Conway from Roxbury. I, again, just wanted to continue to urge the board to continue to move forward and do whatever is reasonable and necessary to become shovel-ready and get the Ag STEM program underway. In regards to the addition in Danbury, they are building an addition, but from what I've read, they're going to be growing that addition in 5 years. So I don't think that kids there, I think we can only wish to have as many kids as they have there. In in terms of enrollment, at Booth last year, the current third grade, when we ended last year, had 7 kids. That's what we anticipated having this year. We came into this year, there's 12 kids in that class, and we have 12 kids or more in every single grade at Booth. It's not a coincidence that the passing of the Ag STEM program in the fall and then the increase of the families that have moved here who are tuitioning their kids in here, it's not a coincidence. People are coming here for this school, for Ag STEM. They're coming here for that. To say that Shepaug, we don't want Shepaug to close, we don't want Ag STEM, but we don't want Shepaug to close, then you do not understand the numbers as they are in our own region. My son is in 2nd grade. There are less than 40 kids in his entire grade. It's not enough to make a baseball team. It's not enough to make a soccer team. I can tell you that because that's where we're at right now. We're struggling. And right now, those teams, we could barely make them, and it's New Yorkers are half of the kids. We cannot have a viable high school without this program. So what do? So you tuition out the high school kids. What happens to the middle school kids? There's no room in the elementary schools, not the way they're set up. So, most likely, we will tuition out the high school kids, pre-K through 8th grade come here, we close all elementary schools. That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. So do not tell me that you want to see Ag STEM not happen here, and that you want to keep Shepaug open, because it's not possible. There's just no way. And the number of kids that we have coming up, we need to double those grades, double them. This school is what is attracting, and Ag STEM is what is attracting families to this region. We need this program, and we need people in this town to support it. And the vote says that they did. And I think they did. I know there's a small group of you who don't. But the majority of people in this region did. For our kids, for our community. So I hope that the board listens to the vote and continues to press forward towards Ag STEM. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm Ken Schultz from New Preston. I just want to first thank all the parents who came out with their kids tonight. Again, it shows a tremendous level of commitment towards the Ag STEM program. It certainly is not easy to be here this late on a weeknight. A couple of points I want to just throw out. The future graduation numbers. I think it was the last meeting someone was saying when my son graduated, it was 45, and we're looking at graduation rates of 30, and that's just, it would be a joke if it wasn't so sad. So if we're going to wait, it makes no sense to wait until we have a graduating class of 30. There are classroom sizes in some classrooms around this country that are 30, and we're going to have a graduation class of 30, which it's just shocking to me. Once again, I just want to say I want the board to do whatever it has to do to get this continually moving forward. I don't, whether it's 197, and to me, there are some things that are more than dollars and cents. When you're talking about a small community, and you have to invest in education, you have to invest in the future. So again, I would plead, the voters voted for it overwhelmingly, 70%. Want to move this forward. It's been approved. That's why me and my family are here. So I would just once again think about moving forward. And honestly, if we hit that 197 or it's less, it doesn't matter. Let's get a viable high school for decades and generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
name's Adam Hughes. I'm a resident of Bridgewater. I grew up around here in Bridgewater. I went to high school here. I stay in this area because of the community, because of the school system. I believe in it. I know it's been a dwindling population since I left in '99. It's always been a battle of who wants a consolidated school or who wants an ag STEM or what have you. But I do know that there's a lot of people that are looking at this. And to reiterate what some of the other people said about the community brings, the school brings the community together. I'm fortunate enough to have my kid in Booth Free School, even though I reside in Roxbury, or reside in Bridgewater now. But I work with a lot of young people. I work in the fire department for Danbury, and there's a tremendous amount of young people that are looking to settle down and start their own homes and families. And this area does bring a lot of people to it because of the low taxes. You know, there's a disparity between the high-end real estate and the low end and who can afford to live here, but the taxes are low. The school system's great. It's been great since I left, and this is only going to encourage more people to come here. So I'd like to encourage you, and the people have voted, and to reiterate what the other gentleman said is most of the people with kids in young schools aren't here. Luckily, my wife, God bless her, is home with my 2 kids and allows me to come up here. But most people think that are in the school systems that this is already going through. So there's a tremendous amount of voices in support of this that you aren't going to hear tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? All right. Oh, yes, ma'am.
Hi, Samantha Steinis, Roxbury, and I have 2 kids at home as well, and my husband is taking care of them tonight. I continue to come here as much as I can to urge you to move forward with getting shovel-ready. As Adam said, and Ken said, and Paula said, there are so many families, and not only families, but I do know I have neighbors that have had children go through the school system and grandchildren go through this school system that are in support of this program. They see the value in this program. They see the value in this adding to our community and staying viable, and we need to invest in our school system and invest in our community, and Ag STEM is the way to do it. I want to encourage you to please move forward with this program. Also, I do recall a board meeting where somebody talked about Prada's numbers, and I think it was Dr. Pat Constantino, and we were ahead of Prada's projected numbers. So someone over here had mentioned Prada's numbers. We are ahead of where we were being projected years ago, and that's because of Ag STEM. And so you could get someone right now and pay a consultant, have them come in and project numbers, but you don't necessarily know that is really going to happen that way. We have more people moving into the system and will continue to move into the system. So please keep that in mind. And also, as Christy Hardy said, keep in mind the little kids that are here and the families that want to maintain our schools here and educate our kids in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Jessie Bard, New Preston. I want to thank you guys, first of all, for everything you guys have been doing on this. I know that it is incredibly challenging and that you will never make everybody here happy. I brought my kids with me tonight, partly because I want you guys to see the future. I want to put a face to it, and partly because I want them to see me fighting for what I believe they deserve. This Ag STEM program is not just about saving Shepaug, although that's obviously part of it. This Ag STEM program is an amazing opportunity. I went to Housatonic when I was a kid. I was involved in the FFA. I was involved in Ag STEM. And I really urge you guys to consider not only saving Shepaug, but also giving these kids the opportunity that they deserve. And moving forward with this, the community has already said we want this. I understand there's a small portion of the community who doesn't want it, but they've already been outvoted. People understand the numbers, and I think at this point, we need to move forward. It's just time. It's time to move on and do what the community has asked for. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Spencer Hardy, New Preston. People voted on numbers that are not accurate. What they were told is not the way it's going to be. The enrollment projections are wrong. The amount of money is much too much for educating students from other towns. We need to try and improve this school, but to spend $40 million to try and attract almost 200 students from other towns when you're counting on 65 students from Danbury, and they're told you right now they're only going to give you 15. I'd like to see how those numbers jive. You know, so the numbers that were voted on are not what we're really dealing with. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Lauren Werkhoven from Washington. I just want to add to what everybody else is saying. We voted for this. We want to move forward with this. The numbers might be different than what's projected, but that's our presentation tonight. The board is working, everybody's working on moving ahead to do this in the right way and in the way that will work and be successful. And again, I have 3 little kids at home. There's a lot of parents that would love to be here tonight that maybe couldn't get a sitter, couldn't be here. We talk about this in the schools. People get excited. It brings pride to the whole community. And it's such a wonderful opportunity that we have and something that we would be so foolish to pass up. So again, thank you for all of your hard work, and I support whatever we have to do to get shovel ready and move forward with this project.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Sue Nicholas. I'm a teacher here at Shepaug, but I'm also a 1975 graduate of Shepaug. And as I'm sitting here tonight, something came to mind about when this building was built. And I remember people saying, oh, the castle on the hill. They spent all of this money on the castle on the hill. Well, let me tell you, this castle on the hill has really done some wonderful things for kids. This castle on the hill have kids in Ivy League colleges for the last 30 years. This castle on the hill has taught children how to be wonderful human beings and working people in society. All we ask is that you take a few minutes and think about the fact that we're talking about the children of these towns. Who wants your child to go to a different town to go to high school? Don't interrupt me. I'm speaking, sir. I didn't interrupt you. Who wants their children to go to a different town to go to high school? Who here, that when we voted as 3 towns to keep our elementary schools open, want our elementary school students to come here to Shepaug, because this is the only building that will fit middle school and elementary schools? Or are we going to ship our elementary and middle school students to other schools as well? I want people to think about the past and realize what a wonderful thing this beautiful building did for our students, and the wonderful effect that it had to have this wonderful, top-of-the-line, just excellent place for people to go to school. Myself, I went to school, and I was lucky enough to come here and teach 4 years after I graduated from college, from high school. So I just want people to take a few minutes and go back in history and realize that was a big, huge thing for our district to do. And it was wonderful, it still is wonderful, and it can be much better. And I want it to be better for everyone's children in this room and everyone's grandchildren in this room. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Going once. All right, I don't see anyone else. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it, your time. And for those parents who are here, thank you. All right, I'm going to make an executive decision, and I'm going to move item number 7 to the next item because we have some students here with us, and I don't want them to be late. So I'm going to ask item number 7 on the agenda, White House Student Film Festival Trip Report. This room must not cut it anymore after you've been to the White House.
Well, this is the castle on the hill.
Exactly. Might take a minute to warm up. Okay.
All right, hi everyone. My name is Brienne Pitt, and I'm a digital media and language arts teacher at Shepaug Valley School. I also run an after-school program called the Shepaug Valley Video Club. It's open to both middle schoolers and high schoolers. This year, the Video Club's video, "The World I Want to Live In," was an official selection of the White House Student Film Festival. Being selected actually got us invited to the White House itself. And Sierra Wilson, right behind me, is one of the Video Club members. She covered the event for the Spartan Chronicle, which is our school's newspaper, and she is now going to read just a few little excerpts from the article that she's currently writing, just to kind of showcase her event. And then I have a video, which was supposed to be a surprise for the girls, but apparently they found it on YouTube. So they already saw it, but... So yeah, 21st century social media, there you go. So I'm gonna play that, and it kind of it highlights the girls' experience, and my experience too. It was pretty awesome. It kind of showcases all of the major events that happened. So Sierra, go ahead.
So 4 8th grade students woke up Sunday, October 2nd to go to the trip that would change their lives forever. We had no idea that we would be official selections, and we were caught silently freaking out with cameras and recorders when told. We, however, exploded with excitement even more when meeting celebrities like Millie Bobby Brown, the Duffer Brothers, and Ty Burrell. The following day, the hotel room was a room of preparation as the girls got ready for what was soon called the best day of our lives. As we made our way to the White House, we stood in line, video chatted classes, and went through security checkpoints. Then we entered the White House itself. After walking through the White House, we split up to enjoy music, food, and many vendors. Much later, we were seen watching our video on a screen the size of a small basketball court in front of over 2,000 people. After, we went into the White House not only to meet the cast of Stranger Things, but also the president himself. To 4 middle school students, this was the best trip of our lives. But do we really understand what this trip has done for us?
Their visions of the future. We decided to take advantage of Shepaug's new state-of-the-art television studio to create a phone newscast that took place in the future to highlight world issues students would one day like resolved. Having just joined Video Club a few months prior, students were unaware of how much work filming really was.
Today, at the friendly debate, Tacoma Romney, Remember there is a bee epidemic? I keep saying epidemic!
So you may come across someone at some point. It will be a nice rainy day. Get it?
And Republicans. Mary, the bees will be buzzing. Remember when there's that Canada epidemic? What?
After weeks of filming, editing, and more filming, their hard work paid off. On August 31st, we were officially invited to attend the White House Student Film Festival. 27 films were selected to attend out of 700 submissions. Of those 27 films, Shepaug was labeled a finalist, which meant that we were one of only 13 films that would be screened. And that is where the journey began.
So this is apparently what 8th graders do at 5 o'clock in the morning. This is where...
I think they're singing Hamilton.
Grew up to be a hero and a scholar.
You're so boring! official.
The man in the mask.
Is that a mask?
Set a timer for 25 minutes.
Here we are. Woohoo! Go Shepaug. We're not dressed.
The film festival kicked off with the screening of 13 finalist videos at the Eisenhower Executive Building. The girls received celebrity treatment as they handled multiple interviews and walked the red carpet alongside other student filmmakers and several Hollywood producers, directors, and actors.
How about these young filmmakers?
During the final moments of the festival, it was announced that Shepaug's film was one of 3 official selections, and that their film would be screened on the South Lawn at the White House the following day. Immediately following the festival, all filmmakers were invited to attend a meet-and-greet reception in the library. There, the students got to dabble in future technologies, mix and mingle with celebrities, including the cast of Netflix's original series Stranger Things, and even score a shout-out from the creator.
Hi, Shepaug. I'm Ross Stopper. I'm one of the creators of Stranger Things. Just keep on filming, keep doing your thing.
One lucky student even snagged a hug before heading home.
Keep in mind, we just walked in, and this is what has happened to the girls' room in a matter of 15 minutes. What has happened to this room?
A tornado. A sea of their faces. Welcome to what's it called? MTV Cribs.
Before the night was over, we squeezed in some sightseeing and visited several of DC's beautiful monuments and memorials. Once back at the hotel, we ended the night with a chocolate treat, compliments of our school's principal.
Hi, today is October 3rd, 2016. We're here at the White House where thousands have gathered to celebrate the
Oh, Lydia!
It was so good. Okay, ready? Okay. Today is October 3rd, 2016. We're here at the White House where thousands have gathered to celebrate the South by Southlawn Festival.
Do it again.
Today is October 3rd, 2016, and we're here at the White House where thousands have gathered to celebrate the South by Southlawn Festival.
That's it.
We're here in the line for the South by Southlawn Festival. There's so many people here, over 1,000 people here. As you can tell, the line goes all the way down and wraps around and comes back up. The people who will probably be here today, hopefully, will hopefully be Leonardo DiCaprio, Mr. President Obama, and the Stranger Things cast.
I am probably most excited about meeting Leonardo DiCaprio and having our film screened and having Obama see it.
President.
Pretty cool.
The day was full of surprises. The first came when we realized that in order to get to the White House lawn, we needed to walk through the White House.
My initial reaction when we walked into the White House was probably, I was extremely surprised because I thought we were just going to kind of walk around the backyard and go around, but we actually got to walk all the way through it.
Oh my gosh.
What we saw when we walked through the halls of the White House, the first thing was there was a long hallway with a bunch of windows that we could see over the south lawn. And there was also a few bands playing through each hall. We also saw the red room, green room, all the colored rooms. I felt like the energy in there was really powerful. What was going through my head when we were walking through the White House, this was probably a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and that something like this wasn't going to happen to me, at least very often or not again.
Once at the event, Shepaug got to mingle with celebrities again, but even better, they got to meet creators, innovators, and organizers that have successfully improved the lives of their fellow Americans and people around the world.
I got to see a lot of different people presenting their ideas. just a lot of different creative people coming together to show what they have worked so hard on or they've learned. And it was just really eye-opening. It was just amazing to see.
After conversing with national change makers and before the Student Film Festival screening, Shepaug got to enjoy a little music, dancing, and other festivities on the lawn of their nation's most famous house.
This is pretty awesome. No complaints.
Y'all ready? Are y'all ready? Get in here, get in here. Everybody get close, get in here.
And then came time for the screening of Shepaug's film, introduced by the cast and crew of Netflix's Stranger Things.
Everyone, hello. We just want to say that we had a great day yesterday watching all of these incredible films that were part of the festival.
It was played on the lawn of the White House for thousands to see, silhouetted by the Washington Monument.
Get more done when working together. It's hard to believe they were ever in a gridlock.
And then came time for the final surprise of the night. Student filmmakers were called to the top of the lawn and led into the White House.
Sierra! I don't know. Tell me what happened! You met Obama? Yeah. Oh my God! Took a picture with him. It was Boston and the cast of Stranger Things came in and we took a picture with him too. Did he talk at all? Yeah, he told us how he was really proud of us and he had that classical voice and it was really cool.
The night rounded out with Leonardo DiCaprio and President Obama in conversation about climate change.
We're going to feel some of the repercussions of climate change in the form of rising sea levels, more intense hurricanes.
Over the next couple of weeks, we're also going to be negotiating around something called hydrofluorocarbons, or HFCs, which are other sources of greenhouse gas.
The discussion was followed by the domestic premiere of DiCaprio's new climate change documentary film, Before the Flood.
Hey girls, where are we going today?
Going to the Capitol building.
Oh.
On a private tour courtesy of Elizabeth Estee's staff.
The finale of Shepaug's D.C. trip led us to the Capitol building, where Connecticut Congresswoman Elizabeth Estee's staff set our group up with a private tour. We got to visit the Congresswoman's office, enter the Capitol through mysterious underground tunnels, see both the Senate and the House of Representative galleries, and enjoy the artistry of one of the nation's most beautiful structures. By the time our trip was over, we were exhausted.
After this experience, I kind of opened my eyes to all the different options I can have. Like, I can go into politics. There's internships I could take at the White House. I could be a filmmaker. There's so many more things I know I can do now.
I enjoyed doing a lot of the camera work in this. I was one of the main camera people there. Now that we won, we can do a lot more, actually.
Video Club inspired me because, I love acting and I love to do directing and stuff. Since we won the White House Film Festival, I feel like anything is possible and we can go anywhere now.
Girls, we thought that you should have a memento of the amazing national award that you won. So we've made replicas of the certificate that they were given as the winners of this contest, and we have one for each of the young ladies, as well as Eliza and Jackson, who worked on this as well. Thank you.
Is that it? Oh, well, thank you very much. It was, congratulations. You made us all very proud. Brianne, if you don't mind, just for those who may not be aware, exactly what did the girls win? I mean, what?
Okay, so
I saw that they were one of the top 3. Is that what it was?
Yeah, so the way it worked was they invited 27 students or 27 groups to the White House for the film festival. There were over 700 submissions. So initially we were just thrilled to be one of the 27 invited. And then a week prior to the actual event, they named 13 finalists. And then 14 of those 27 were just going to be honorable mentions. So when we found out we were finalists, again, we were thrilled. And then at the actual event, they showed the first 5 videos, and then another 5 videos, and then they said the last 3 videos are the official selections. And part of the prize was being screened on the White House lawn, because only 3 videos got screened on the White House lawn in front of the entire South by South lawn event. And only 13 films got screened at the actual film festival, but the reward really was to be screened at the White House on the lawn the following day. And also we've received a American Film Institute mentor. So we're going to be mentored, our video program is going to be mentored by an American Film Institute, someone who works at the American Film Institute for, they haven't really specified how long yet, but I'm assuming at least this year, maybe after.
Well, that's great. Congratulations again.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, girls, for all your hard work, for the whole club. Thank you. All right. All right, moving on our agenda then. The next item is item number 4, consent agenda, which is the minutes of our business meeting of October 3rd and the information about the field trip to Coney Island. Is there anyone who wants to remove anything from the consent agenda? For the 2 new members, the way this works, there are some perfunctory things that we don't need to spend a lot of time on, and so I put them on what we call a consent agenda. If you want to remove something from the consent agenda and discuss it, you can do that. Any member can do that. But if there's no request to remove it, it's simply approved. So is there anyone who wants to remove anything from the consent agenda? All right, seeing no one, then the consent agenda is approved. Item 5, report of the chair. Dr. Costantino? Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's me. We've got a lot going on tonight, so I won't put anything else in there. Next, superintendent's report. Dr. Costantino.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I do have a couple of things. First of all, at a prior meeting, we talked about the possibility of hiring Malone and McBroom to do a demographic study, and I did ask Mr. Geeson to look into this, and we did hear from Michael Zuba, who is the Director of Planning, and he explained that, I'm going to read what he wrote, not the whole thing, but the part that's pertinent. In school systems similar to Region School District 12, we have found the traditional cohort survival similar to the one employed by Dr. Prada to provide very reliable projections. We would likely approach this project in a similar manner, where our methodology is best applied are in those dynamic, complex, and large suburban or urban systems that see shifting demographics. Additionally, a big focal point of our business has to do with developing accurate projections and redistricting plans for neighborhood-level schools. This is typically reserved for school systems that have several schools that group by geographic areas. So they are saying to us in the conversation with Mr. Geeson that it really is not to our benefit to do that work. The work we're getting from Mr. Prada is sufficient for our needs, but certainly if, I'll give this to you, Mr. Chairman, if anybody wants to contact them and get further information, happy to send that along. We have that. Okay, then I just wanted to, I wasn't sure, we haven't had a long-range plan meeting. I know we have one in November, but I was not sure If all the board members received the timeline from Karen Files, she's not here tonight, so I just wanted to make sure that you received that, and that's basically on the surveys that are going to be going out from Panorama. And we have teacher surveys going out in late October, student surveys going out in late November, and parent surveys going out in January. So if you have questions or concerns about this, please contact Karen, and she'll be happy to adjust that if we need to. The France trip, we received some information unsolicited by someone who works in national security, giving us concerns, sharing concerns about traveling to France. I sent the board, I believe, almost 5 or 6 articles and pieces of evidence that he shared with me. I did speak to Mrs. Gallo, and we also spoke to the teacher in charge, who you heard today speak so eloquently. And I am recommending to the board, and this certainly is just a recommendation, the board did vote to send the students, I believe, like in maybe June, because she wanted to do some fundraising, I think, Mrs. Heidi over there. I am recommending to the board that we cancel this trip and encourage the students to go somewhere in the continental United States and/or Canada. So that is just my recommendation.
All right. Thank you. Heidi, is she still here?
Yeah.
When do you need a decision by? Do you need a decision tonight? Would you like a decision tonight? Karen, I'm sorry, Heidi, if you wouldn't mind, would you go? Yeah, thank you.
The sooner we find out, the better, simply because parents have already paid a deposit. So I need to negotiate with the travel company, whom I'm sure can be flexible if we were to do another trip. But, you know, obviously, it's a big shift in gears.
Peter.
Just, I don't think I heard, where in France?
Paris. We did a survey last year, and the consensus was that that was the interest. Parents and families, students were interested in going to Paris. We tried to keep the trip to a reasonable price by making it a shorter trip. So, you know, this has been a long process, but, you know, safety concerns are up to you to decide.
Peter.
Are you looking for direction from the board?
We need to make a decision. The superintendent is recommending the trip be canceled for safety purposes. The teacher, and from what I'm hearing, and the people who have signed up, the teacher says they understand the risks, they want to go. The board has previously approved the trip. The superintendent is recommending it be canceled. The board needs to decide. Greg?
Yeah,
And she would like a decision tonight.
I mean, I haven't seen the particular warnings or things you got. I mean, I did go on the website of the United States Department of State, and there are no travel advisories or warnings for France at all. They have them for probably 30 or 40 different locations, but it doesn't, even a search of France turns up nothing in those advisories. So I'm wondering what information that we receive that leads you to decide that it's not safe for them to go there. I'm just curious.
Yep, sure.
I did not make a copy of all of them, but I did make a copy of 2. So I'll share what I have in front of me. The first one comes from the U.S. Embassy in Paris, France. It's a security message for U.S. citizens. Continued state of alert, September 9, 2016. In the wake of recent arrests of terror suspects in Paris, the U.S. Embassy in Paris, France, reminds U.S. citizens that credible information suggests that ISIL and other terrorist groups continue to plan terrorist attacks in France, as detailed in the department's worldwide caution. We strongly urge U.S. citizens to be aware of local events and take appropriate steps to bolster their personal security. There is a continuing threat in Europe from unaffiliated persons planning attacks inspired by major terrorist organizations, but conducted on an individual basis. So then it has here, U.S. citizens should exercise vigilance in public transportation, high-profile events, residential areas, offices, hotels, clubs, restaurants, et cetera, I'm not going to read the whole thing. Then there's another one that I made a copy of, and I sent these to the board today. I apologize, I sent them in the afternoon. I meant to do it on Friday. This is a Homeland Security Committee, a European terror threat snapshot, and it talks about all the different areas of terror here. And, it talks about ISIS-linked attack plots. 35 of these plots have been in Europe, a whole bunch of stuff. And then it has here, this is the key points from Homeland Security. And Europe is confronting an increasingly dangerous Islamic terrorist threat. Over the last year, ISIS-linked attack plots in Europe have unfolded at a rate of nearly 2 every month. There have been at least 35 ISIS-linked plots to launch attacks across Europe since 2014, including the November 2015 Paris and March 2016 Brussels attacks. 22 of these plots have been executed or disrupted within the last 12 months. So I just felt, this is how I feel. I feel this information was brought to my attention, and it would be irresponsible of me not to share it with the board when someone who works in security, who wants to remain anonymous, but is a reliable source, has shared this with me, and I think the board needs to be aware because you are the ones who approved this trip. So that's where I'm coming from, and there are, as I said, there are other articles, and anybody in the public who would want to see them, if you just email me, I'll be happy to share the links.
Thank you. Peter?
My tendency would be to support the superintendent. I mean, we can't predict the future. Nobody can. But it is not such a very good area to send Americans into at this time. And I think we'd all feel terrible, while the odds may be 1,000 to 1 that something could happen. I think the board, the parents, the teachers, the system would feel terrible if something did happen to any of the children. So I think we have a responsibility. I don't see taking a chance as worth it. France is a chance, and I think we'd better off not taking that chance right now.
Greg?
Yeah, I don't know whether you have evaluated the potential for similar risks in the other venues you're considering. I would remind people that there was an attack of the Canadian Parliament not long ago that resulted in a number of shootings and deaths there. There have been terrorist activity and attacks which killed innocent people in the United States, including San Bernardino, California, and other locations. So the difficulty is that there are risks. The reason to go or not to go to France would be that we felt the risk was greater, excessive, a greater risk. Otherwise, you really want to shut down any trip and not go anywhere, even New York City. I don't have to remind people of the 2,700 people killed in New York City in 2001. So, one can reach the conclusion that you must practice safety at all costs. But the difficulty is where and when are you really always safe, and you're not. So it's really a question of evaluating whether the risk is greater for traveling to France than it would be at any of the other locations, and the risks at those locations should similarly be evaluated. Otherwise, you're making the decision in the dark and saying, okay, we're going to go to Quebec province in Canada because it's a French-speaking province. that's fine, and there may be nothing there that happens. But on the other hand, there are risks in multiple places, and it's not just the United States that is a target, and not just Europe that's a target. So just a thought.
I would say as a one moment, please, Valerie. I would just say as a procedural matter that insofar as the board has approved the trip previously, that there would have to be a motion to cancel the trip that carried for the board. Valerie.
Then on a procedural, we don't have an action statement on the agenda for that. Would we need to do that? Would we as
I think we can consider it under this item. The superintendent has made a recommendation. The board does not have to act on that recommendation. As I said, it would require an affirmative vote of the board to cancel the trip.
Well, if I might, this just breaks my heart. It just breaks my heart. We just got back from London. My youngest daughter lived in London for a year getting her master's. Every day I checked Google News. It's a wonderful opportunity. I mean, this is a great thing. We've seen what happened to our kids going to the White House. Can you imagine the world that opens up to these kids that are in the middle of nowhere going to Paris? I mean, it's just too wonderful. However, and I'm just looking at a CNN from September 12th, in which the French Prime Minister terror threat is maximal. We all travel to and from London, New York, Paris, but we're kind of aware and we're not in large groups and we duck and weave. I know I do, duck and weave, and I'll not go to any concert or any public area. You sit in a cafe and you're kind of looking around a lot. So how enjoyable will it be in the end if you have to look around a lot for a large group of kids? So reluctantly, I would suggest Quebec City.
Anyone else? Is that it? Michelle?
I would like to really hear what the rest of the board has to say, because I'm very torn about this. And I just want everyone to know that both of my children are signed up to go on this trip. So I don't even know if I should be recusing myself or not. I'm not really sure. But, you know, and I've talked with my husband about this. If we were going just as a family, we would still go. No question. And I don't like, to Greg's point, I don't like to live in fear. I mean, there was a homegrown terrorist attack in New York City not very long ago, and we were just there last weekend. So I don't like to let fear guide what we do. Otherwise, I'd never get on a plane or I'd never cross the street. So I'm trying I'm wrestling with this because I know I'm also a member of the board and now responsible for the well-being of other children. And I need to take that into account, and listening to what Valerie's talking about, you know, a large group visiting tourist sites. You know, is that a larger target? Is it prudent at this point in time? I mean, I'm struggling with this decision, so I would really like to hear what the rest of the board has to say.
Jen?
I let Michelle go first because I was trying to draw straws here, but my daughter's also signed up and I'm conflicted as well. I completely trust Heidi and Mrs. Bookus about the trip, and I was conflicted, and I actually was thinking, well, I might go, as if to think that somehow I could make a difference if something were to happen, which is absurd. But it would make me feel better as a parent if I was there, even though I don't know if that would make my daughter feel better. It's really not all about her, is it? So anyway, I too would like to hear what everybody else has to say because I'm really struggling with this. So,
Alan?
I think the way Heidi prefaced this is that the parents are aware of the situation, and I don't mean to pass the buck, but I think that we might abstain from withdrawing our support and allow the parents to make the decision for themselves and for their families, because that way the people who are involved can decide for themselves. We're kind of intervening in a way, and if we vote it down and say no, then they won't be able to make the decisions for themselves. And so what we're wrestling with is the fact that horrible things have happened in France, but then, at least personally, I have friends who vacation there in August. I have a family that family member who goes to Paris and the south of France quite often on business and has over the last year and survived very well. So it's like anything else in life. There's always risk and there's always reward. And I think it's one of the instances where we can, I hope without seeming to be shirking any duties, allow the people involved to make the decision for themselves. And if enough people decide no, then obviously it's going to endanger there's probably a minimum number of the trip. But so be it. But perhaps the people who have opted to go, some of whom obviously are families who have board representatives here, can make that decision for themselves without having it taken away from them. So I would be inclined to not rescind our acceptance of the trip.
All right, thank you. Michael?
I actually feel the opposite. I'd like to go with Dr. Cosentino's recommendation that we cancel the trip. I understand, the desire to go to Paris. I mean, if you're studying French culture, that's where you want to be. But I think from our perspective as a board, we need to be as cautious as we can without totally denying students the opportunity to leave these walls. And I think that, certainly Quebec would give students the option of, kind of stoking their desire to continue to travel, to continue to, to pursue fluency in French. I know it's not ideal. We faced as a board, if you remember, a similar problem recently because of Zika with a Mexico trip. And we erred on the side of caution there. I don't see how terrorism would be any different from a disease. I think they're both risky. I think in the case of the Mexico trip, we were told that the risk was probably minimal based on certain precautions, but there was still a risk. And I think all you need to do is do a Google search in terms of what's been happening in France. Lately, it seems that they're definitely more of a target than other places in Europe and certainly in North America. And in light of that, I think we need to err on the side of caution.
Anthony?
This is a decision I struggled with the first time when this was put in front of us for the reasons that we're talking about now. But that also went along with a recommendation from the superintendent at the time to essentially approve the trip, which is why it was on the agenda. So now we're faced with new information, new concerns coming from the superintendent, who's making a recommendation not to sponsor, not for the school district to sponsor the trip. And I find it very hard to just ignore on its face. I would like, as Alan suggested, if we could find sort of a compromise here, but I think it's going to be in the form of the board is either officially behind it or officially not. If somebody wants on their own accord to take their family, certainly have all the right in the world to do that. And if it's a collection of families who happen to all go to Shepaug who want to do this, there's nothing we can do to stop that either. And I don't know if that's how we thread this needle, but I think officially the board has to get on one side of the line or the other. I mean, I don't have, my children are too young to go on this trip, although they lobbied me pretty hard to see if I could make an exception. I said, it's not up to me, we can't, rules are rules. But coincidentally, I have one son who was interested in studying abroad, and when we were talking about what cities he was interested in attending, he had said that Nice was at the top of his list, and literally the next morning was the news of what happened in Nice, which, just caused us tremendous pause to think about what we were okaying or what we were getting behind. And I just share that it's in our lives. We can't ignore it. He is still going to study abroad. We just chose a city that was sort of off that beaten path. So I do subscribe to you got to live your life, but I would support the recommendation of the superintendent to not sponsor the trip or sanction the trip as a board.
I'm sorry, Rebecca?
I'm with my peers that this is not a simple question, simply because none of us do want to make decisions that are based solely in fear, and we want to provide an opportunity for our students to spread their wings, and we want them to have experiences. But I think that the two things that kind of are my issue is, as an adult, you can make an informed decision and a calculated risk, and it's your choice as an adult. When you're a minor, you're depending upon the decisions in part that are being made for you, and you're taking your cues from that. And I think that we need to be aware that the current climate is, it's fluctuating so much. We are still learning what it means to live in this world now, where terrorism has become so much more common, and where soft targets are the preferred targets. And I think that it would be irresponsible of us to ignore the concerns that have been brought to Dr. Cosentino's attention. And I would much prefer, my older niece who doesn't live in this area, but she had the opportunity in high school to go to Paris, and it was fantastic. And I'm so happy that she could. And her younger sister was supposed to go to Italy, and it has been canceled, because that's the difference that a few years can make. I think that we need to make sure that we've got stuff sorted out, and what it means to have these soft targets, and we need to be a little more firm in how we're managing that as a country and as a world. And I'm not comfortable putting these kids at risk at this time.
Peter?
Motion to accept the superintendent's recommendation.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there further discussion?
Yeah.
I have a question. Heidi, I don't know if you, and this may be naive of me, but I'll ask you if you know, and maybe Mr. Geeson, you can chime in if you have anything to add. If the board were to withdraw its, if this motion were to pass, and the board withdrew its sanction of this trip, would you be able to do it by yourself? In other words, with the parents and you to go on this trip, or would it have to be school sanctioned?
That's something that I don't know how to answer. I've been trying, I think Mr. Geeson likes the insurance packet that we get by going through an organization. I
Okay.
would
Bob,
be
can you add
willing to
anything
do
to
that, but I'm not sure it's insurance-wise possible.
They shared with me the insurance that the agency has provided, and I shared that with the broker. And it's covered, the insurance itself covers the trip. The other aspect of it doesn't address the problem you're wrestling with. Is that the place you want to send kids? That's
I know, what I'm trying to find out, what I'm trying to understand is if the board withdraws its sanctioning of the trip, is there any way that the parents can decide, of these students, can decide to do it on their own?
I don't know that I'd be allowed to go without the board's blessing. I
All
don't
right,
know how
okay.
that works.
Is there anything first, anything else? It's been moved and seconded to withdraw the consent for the trip.
Yeah.
Greg?
I just want everyone to I don't want to repeat what I said before, but I just want everyone to be wary of it. I'm a little leery of it based on the U.S. Embassy's website. I read the entire thing while we were looking at it, and I'm a little bit leery based on that of the trip at this particular time. We also may have events in the world that
Excuse me, the trip is in the spring.
No, I understand that, but when I say this particular time, I don't mean necessarily tomorrow, but this day and age. I don't think things are going to get better by then. I don't know what's going to happen as a result of the efforts of the United States and the coalition forces to take Mosul back in Syria. That may create in Iraq, those areas there may may cause things to come out we don't expect. But I just want people to understand that since the United States authorities break up multiple threats you never hear about every day, and the authorities in other countries like France do uncover those plots and unravel them every day, that there's almost no safe place to travel. That's probably the end description there. And so the question is, will we evaluate every trip on the same basis as this one? Maybe there's a good reason to pass on this one right now, but we really need to think in terms of how we're going to approach this, because if the next thing that comes up is a trip to somewhere else, we may have to make the same decision again. Is the fact that there are things going on halfway across the world going to impact something that might occur in whether it be in Quebec or Montreal or one of the other places that you might go to experience French culture? Are we going to be saying the same thing, that those areas are unsafe? Anytime you have people gathered together in a large group, whether it be in Old Montreal or whether it be in the Place de Concorde or somewhere else, you're going to have a soft target, and therefore we really need to do some thinking as to whether or not anything is going to be acceptable to us, or we're going to make the same decision. This breaks my heart too, having been to Paris, having enjoyed Paris, and knowing what a life-changing thing it can be to visit a culture like that, and to see the sights there. I'm torn. I'm extremely torn. Again, because there are no safe alternatives. I mean, having had the solemn visit that I made to the Murrah building in Oklahoma City, the memorial that's there, and seeing that level of terrorism, and the thing that breaks your heart are the 19 small half-size chairs that are there for the children that were killed in the daycare center in the Murrah building in Oklahoma City. I can tell you that you see that and you just don't know. That happened right here. And it can happen from people, not people coming from half a world away or from Islamic terrorism. It can happen from an American citizen born here, generations here, that decides to wake up and kill. And so I'm just saying we're kidding ourselves if we think we can dodge a bullet. It's there, and it's hard to make, but I guess I'll probably support this decision to stop it, although it does break my heart too.
Valerie.
Can we just vote? We're voting on this trip and this trip only, and then we can proceed and not look globally with every trip. We're not setting policy.
All right. It's been moved and seconded to cancel, for the board to withdraw its sanctioning of the trip. Is there anything else? Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. All set? All those opposed, raise your hand. Any abstain? All right, the motion passes. The trip is not sanctioned. I'm sorry. You'll have to inform the folks. Thank you.
Thank you for making.
And thank you for your time and effort on this, and just a situation of circumstance. Thank you. And good luck. All right, Dr. Costino, is that it on your report?
Yes.
All right, item...
Jim?
I'm sorry?
I have some correspondence to pass along. Evidently, this Hall & Oates, or at least John Oates, is part of this fundraiser, and it's kind of wonderful and kind of embarrassing. On 44 East 32nd Street, the Cutting Room, all proceeds will be used to provide, this is that concert for the fundraiser for the Blue Rose Foundation. All proceeds will be used to provide preschool scholarships for economically disadvantaged children at the Reach School in Washington. It's a little embarrassing, but God bless.
It is.
Okay.
Allie and I are going Thursday evening, and we do have some families that are economically disadvantaged, and they will benefit from it.
Wish I knew
So we're
that
very grateful, and
day it was alive.
we will give the Region 12 Board's appreciation to Hall & Oates and whoever else is there.
All right. Is that it on your report? Yes. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Item 8, Todd Dyer, class of 2016. Mr. Dyer.
We'd like to thank you for the opportunity once again for Mr. Dyer to present the accomplishments of our students. I'd just like to point out it's a great night to do that because you're going to see the two faces of Shepaug tonight. One where really special things happen in a very short amount of time. A teacher took the initiative to create this video production program after a grant was written by a central office administrator, after students became interested and took a risk, which is really what's special about Shepaug. The other side, in which we are always challenged to perform, and which Dr. Cosentino has upped that challenge since the day she walked in the door, is through standardized testing and AP testing. Mr. Dyer works very diligently with the students to create the optimal test environment and to create AP opportunities wherever we can do that. And Ms. Ferreira, in her capacity as associate principal, works with our teachers to ensure that the curriculum gets our students ready for these tests and creates a rigorous environment for our students. So it's a very good night for Shepaug because you got to see the whole picture. Mr. Dyer?
Todd, before you start, I just want to make an announcement. For those of you who may be waiting for item 9.1, right sizing of building project presentation by Castle Booze, that item will not go forward tonight. Castle Booze is not here, so we will not be considering 9.1. So I just wanted to let folks know, I'm sorry, I just realized myself, if people have been waiting for that, that will not be presented tonight. We will be doing item 9.2. All right, Mr. Dyer, thank you.
But are we going to discuss it at all? I mean,
Well,
as we
the
are?
building committee, chairman of the building committee may have something to say about that, but I'm just letting you know that Castle Booze is not here. So people can decide what they want to do.
Can we leave it on the agenda?
It's on the agenda, yeah. Just informing people that Castle Booze is not here. There will not be a presentation by Castle Booze.
Well, if nothing
People
else,
were
we
waiting for
need
that.
to know why.
Mr. Dyer, thank you.
Good evening, Board of Education. Thank you again for letting me present on the graduating class of 2016. This is the 11th time I come in front of you to talk about a graduating class, and it is my pleasure to be here. We're going to start on the packet on the left side, and it has the wonderful picture of our graduate there.
That's the only one. It's wonderful.
Shepherded in by our board chair and superintendent of schools. I've done a little different focus this year. Typically, I come and you just get sort of documents that have listings of things, and I've sort of put together more of a holistic approach, and it's a different approach. So I'm hoping it flies well. We'll see where we go after this and your feedback. The class of 2016 was a dynamic class, very talented and multifaceted, and I think it's represented in the information I'm going to share with you tonight. So on the first page after the cover is the class profile. Graduating class last year had 79 students. We started the year at 78 and gained one middle of the year, a gentleman from a private school who joined us and was a great addition. Last year's class posted an acceptance to post-secondary programs of 89%, one of the highest in most recent years. 60 declared that they attended to or plan to attend four-year institutions. 5 stated that they were planning to attend two-year institutions or technical institutions. We had 2 that were are attending, at this point, career training programs. 1 that was accepted to post-secondary but was taking a gap year. 3 that went on to transition programs following graduation. 1 that went to a post-grad year and PG year, as some people call them, and then will be attending post-secondary afterwards, and 7 that were going directly to work. You can see our methodology listed below that first table. And so out of those students, 70 were going on to post-secondary out of the 79 to give us that 89%. On the box underneath the top table, you'll see declared majors, very similar to past few years. The top of the list was business and economics. After that, undeclared was our top, and then after that, the business and economics. And then you can see the breakdowns in the different majors declared by our students at the time of graduation. On the right is a listing of community service areas and the common ones from the class of 2016. You can see that our students gave to the Bridgewater Fair, their town fire departments, Little Britches organization, library assistants, and camp counselors, just to name a few, but those were some of the top areas that students were giving back to from this class. This class, 2016, was presented with over $100,000 in scholarships awards from local community scholarship committees, and we're really proud of that fact as well. Next page is sort of a breakdown of our learner outcomes, focusing on 4 areas: academics, senior project, extracurricular activities, and answering a call to citizenship. The first area, I talk a little bit in that paragraph about our 2016 grad, Connor Schur, who was featured on the front of this brochure. And Connor, had earned or contributed over 400 hours during his high school career, which is significant. And he did so in a variety of ways through volunteer fire department, the Bridgewater Fair, the Little Britches organization, and the Unified Sports Program, among other things. And one of the things that Connor was noted for and highlighted for was his willingness to help others, to give back, his genuine spirit, and his way of answering his call to citizenship. Class of 2016 logged over 5,000 hours of community service in their 4 years, and that's 1,000 hours more than the class of 2015. Not to pull any punches, but it was pretty impressive. Further down the next paragraph, I talk a little bit about a couple other people that were highlighted in senior project or in the community service events. Some that gave back through their commitment to younger students, helping out programs in our community for arts, camp counselors, some that gave through their dance talents, and some that were willing to give to the ballet. Next, I turn the spotlight to Senior Project. And as you know, Senior Project is one of our premier programs. We are a lighthouse school for the state of Connecticut. We have recently been, another school in Connecticut has reached out to us to try and mirror our program at their school for their students because we do it so uniquely. A couple of senior projects that were highlighted by our Senior Project Coordinator, Jay Stewart. Spiritual Exploration, a senior's introspective look at spiritual impact on teens. Habitat for Humanity, one senior's answering that call by giving back to Habitat for Humanity, both here in our state and in Oregon. Odyssey of the Mind was one senior's way of inspiring youth and getting them to think about the pursuits of the brain. And another one, Combining Passion and Learning, one student's interpretation of Senior Project through sound recording, video, and martial arts, and putting together a martial arts video. Class of 2016 was posted major extracurricular activities filled with musicians, singers, actors, and athletes. And they had an impressive list of their accomplishments. And they were also academically standouts. They were a strong cohort group. As we look onto the next page, the next sheet of paper is the class of 2016 acceptances. This year, based on the board's request, we have done our ratings through the U.S. News and World Report. We have moved away from Barron's based on this body's request. As I come into this conversation about the rankings that exist, there's quite a few different methodologies. For years, Shepaug had used Barron's. U.S. News and World Report is definitely of prominence. There's a new one that has just come out that was brought to my attention as well, the Wall Street Journal Times ranking system. Each methodology is different. And it's important for us to know that when we're looking at the schools. Many of the schools do line up when we match methodology to methodology, but not all of them do. And especially when we look at the Wall Street journals, and that one's the first year, this initial offering, the Wall Street journals, theirs is a very different look. And there's pros and cons to each of these methodologies. All right. So as we look through, this is U.S. News and World Report. Most selective is on the left-hand side, followed by more selective. Then you have selective on the bottom right of that page. And as you turn to the next page, selective continues with less selective, and then unrated, non-competitive, or special ratings. And as with Barron's, U.S. News and World Report has those as well. And it's an impressive list. I'm really proud of our students for the list of schools that they've gotten into. But then as we go further, as we've heard and I've talked about before, the choice of the educational setting that each student and the family decides on is really a individual or family decision. And there's a lot of factors that go into that final decision. So you have a listing of all the schools that the students had gotten accepted to, and then we have a randomized list of schools that students chose to attend. On that list, you'll notice for the first time since I've been here, it was common at my last school, but a placement site or a job training site, it's a 2-year program called Job Corps. And I'm proud of that fact that that's on that list, because one of the questions that I've got from Mr. Tagley, and it might have been my first year or second year, but I remember him asking me, what do you do for all students? How do you connect students to careers? And it's a question that has made me pause and made me think and helped me to direct programming for our students at Shepaug. Because typically 85% of our students go on. This past year, 89% go on. But there are those that don't see that next step in continuing education as their next step. And so with the Career and College Center, along with advances in our programming, I really feel like we've done a better job of connecting students to those career choices to get them to understand what the next step is and how they can access that continuing education that fits them best. Questions or comment on the packet? Yep.
Can you describe Job Corps just a little bit more?
So Job Corps is a federally funded program through the Department of Labor. It's similar in thought to like signing up for the Army. Not quite the same because you're not being trained for that specific avenue. You're being trained to a specific job skill. The job sites are throughout the nation. There's 2 in Connecticut. There's quite a few in New England. Each job site has its own focus, so whether it be HVAC or electrical or plumbing, carpentry, a whole host of different jobs. You sign up for that 2-year stint. You're given a uniform, your tools. It's free of charge for students, and afterwards they help with job placement. So it's a great program. It is aimed at lower income students, which we have at our school as well. And for those students, it can be a life changer. The stories of Job Corps graduates, and there's a couple on their website about how it has changed their lives, are very powerful.
And where do they go? Like they're
Our students went in New England. They stayed here, but you could choose, depending on your specific area of trade, any of the sites. The educational landscape has changed in the last 10 years or 11 years that I've been up here. And, unfortunately, incomes have not increased at the same level for most people that the college cost has increased. There was a really nice commentary about the Wall Street Journal Times article that related to this question exactly. And for those that can afford $65,000 a year without really an impact on their income or their bank check, then there are quite a few of those schools that really fit. And then there's those that are below that income level where they really fall off, and institutions that have large endowments can support those families. You then have a middle gap, right? And that really families in the $20,000 to $25,000 capacity to pay range are looking at a school that's $62,000 a year, let's say, and the school doesn't come back with a lot of money for that family. And so then there's a huge gap. And so I think that decision comes to play quite often in our families. And when you look at the value of the education, many of the students and families are looking at what the cost will be for them, and then what is the the outcome afterwards. How much debt will they be in as they will leave school, and what does that mean when they're going into their entry-level positions, before they start making enough money to really be able to make a dent on that debt. So I think that's a big factor in our students' decisions.
Are you seeing an increase in that? I mean, it seems like based on articles that more and more families are falling into that category, and I'm sure from your perspective, that kind of breaks your heart when we've been telling kids you work hard, you study hard, you can go to any school you want, and now the reality is that, sure, but then you're loaded down with debt for much of your life.
It is a larger challenge than our community. Unfortunately, it's the challenge of our nation. I hope it's something that comes to bear at the national level, because it is something that we see on a regular basis. And the counselors here, when we work with families, and you see that disappointment in a student's face or a family's face for their hopes and dreams and how hard they've worked, and the offering that comes back from the college is so far off what their ability to pay is. And then typically the answer from the college is, well, we have these loans. And, yes, we're going to help you, but here's $30,000 in loans each year to be able to fill that gap. And I think, when you look at that versus some of the other schools that say, okay, we can get that price down below a state school level, or we can get a comparable level, then the choice becomes much more a reality. And I think that's a big question for a lot of our families as they move forward. And I think some students are making the choice to maybe go more locally for the first couple of years and then really make the jump to some of those either be private schools or more elite type of schools where the cost factor can be sort of mitigated as you get your core classes out of the way. So I think it's a decision that a lot of our families are having to make. I think what we've tried to encourage our students and families to do is to spread their net a little wider. So you have initial outlay of some costs with the applications, but then the other side of that, when it comes back to you, you can look at the offers and say, okay, this one does work out much better for us than this school. And there was a great article last year that we circulated out that talked about this issue exactly. And the young student that wrote the article ended up going to Fordham. And Fordham had given her a free ride, or a full ride, and compared to her other school choice. And she talked about how sort of there's this misconception in the world that if you're a great student, you're going to get that package, and that's not always the case. Other questions about the first side of my presentation? Okay, great. I'm going to turn over to the right side of the packet. This is more the standardized testing piece. Although I'm focusing on the class of 2016 report, I really wanted to talk just briefly about the PSAT participation. Last year's decision by the district to support sophomores and juniors taking the PSAT made a significant difference, and it came at a timely fashion. Last year, as you'll remember, the state of Connecticut decided to move away from the SBAC consortium and to embrace the SAT as the test for juniors. And so the practice value of that test was really important. And so this first slide that you have there under PSAT participation, you can see the significant jump in the junior participation rate. And you'll notice, and this is something that comes back to us being small schools, we had 3 students that it was not appropriate for them to take the PSAT, and that dropped our rate of participation to 94%. Still an excellent rate, but that's just something for us to keep in the back of our mind. The second slide again, for sophomores, 91%. So significant jump, and that will continue in the future as long as the district continues to practice that idea of all students participating. The second information is the SAT, and this is the graduating class report from the College Board. We turn in 2 pages, you'll find the critical reading mean score. On that box, you'll notice the 5-year trend, and we're looking at 2016. And you notice that the numbers for the class of 2016 were very strong, the strongest that they've been in the last 5 years. You'll notice in comparison to Connecticut, we were 39 points higher, and compared to the total group, the national group, significantly higher. The next page is our math, and the same story that we saw in critical reading exists in math. So we had significant jump in math to 543, the highest in 5 years, above the Connecticut average of 500, and again above the national average as well. And similar story in writing. Writing jumped to 533, again the highest in 5 years, and again higher than Connecticut or the national average. So that's a great question, thank you. The gains relate to a cohort group. It was an amazing class. I do think that the redesigned SAT fits Shepaug much better, and I do expect us to be posting these kinds of strong numbers as we go into the future. The new SAT is much more aligned with the way that we teach instead of rote learning. It goes back to big ideas and actual involvement with the curriculum. Okay, the next report up is the ACT. I did want to mention with the SAT, this is the last year of elective SAT reporting. So on the SAT, as of last year, students could choose to take it or not. From here forward, all students in the state of Connecticut, if they are eligible to take the SAT, will be taking it. And so I'm very interested to see next year what that will look like for us when we see everyone in the state having to take it. I'm really excited actually about that. So we'll see. All right, next up, ACT. Profile report, and we're going to turn in all the way in. You'll see a graph after section 1 executive summary, and those 2 pages we're going to look at the same time. So the graph gives you a comparison to the state of Connecticut and to national testing, and you'll notice that our students were above in every area except for biology, and there we were above the national average significantly and only slightly below the state average. You'll notice again, if we look down to the tables below, on table 1.1, 27 students took the ACT, and they posted significant gains, and they were close to the state average in science, but everywhere else were above. All right, and the last piece of my report is the AP. You have 2 documents that go along with AP. The first is a PowerPoint, and the second is the 5-year score summary. I'm going to be talking off the PowerPoint, and then I'll jump to the summary. One of the things I'm proud about is our open access to AP. You've heard me say that before. I'm really excited for what that does for our students in terms of offering them the chance at rigorous college-level work. It also allows our students to know what it means to be that level of work, and it provides many of our students with the opportunity to gain credit at a college campus and put themselves in line for competitive college enrollment. On the second page, you can see our course offerings for last year. In addition to our course offerings that are listed, I included the VHS offerings from last year for our 2016 graduates. As you've heard from us before, AP carries a stronger weighting, and you can see the weighting statement on page 2. I think the third and fourth slides on page 3 are very powerful. At Shepaug Valley School, like many other high schools, there will be an increased focus on replicating the rigor of college courses, including taking the AP exam. And this was a statement that was made last year. So in the 2015-16 school year, students could choose between taking the AP exam or taking the final. In the past, we had no statement about that. So under Dr. Costantino's direction, we really have pushed the envelope, And in 2015-16, 52 out of the 57 seniors that were enrolled in AP chose to take the AP exams. That represents a 91% exam participation rate. So although they had the choice, many of them took it. And that was a big change, and you'll see that in the numbers. We believe that participation in the AP exam changes both the rigor of the course, because students now are focusing on that end of course exam, more replicating what it looks like at college, when they have to be able to summarize and synthesize all that information into a cumulative experience. So at the AP at Shepaug for this 2016 seniors, there were 79 seniors. 57 of them were enrolled in at least one AP course. That's 72%. 35 were enrolled in 2 or more classes during their time at Shepaug, for 44% of the class. 19 were enrolled in 3 or more, which is 24% of the class, and 9 were enrolled in 4 or more. And 3 were enrolled in 5 AP courses, for 4%. The reason this is such a big deal is because students that do well in AP and then they score 3 or better on the test have the opportunity at college campuses to gain significant credit. Many schools, if you have a 3, 4, or 5, will grant you 3, 4, or sometimes more credits based on that course, their course lineup. And so this is a big deal. At no other school I've been at, and I think I've told you before, this is my 5th high school that I've taught at. No other school has this level of participation in AP. It's unprecedented. In the associate principal's research, typically schools are looking at 20 to 30% AP enrollment rates. Part of that is because of the size of the school. They just don't have enough seats. But part of it is our focus. We don't have a lot of hurdles in front of our kids. They need to do well in their classes, they need to be committed, they need to have their parents' consent, but they have to show that interest. And that's a big deal. All right, I'm going to turn to the 5-year school summary. On the top of that first page, I'd like to highlight the number on 2016. When we look at the number of students over the past 5 years that have been enrolled, okay, according to the AP and College Board, look at the jump from 15 to 16, right? 50 student jump. The reason is the AP program, College Board, does not consider our students to be participating in the program unless they take the exam. So that's a big deal. That decision made such a difference for us in terms of the landscape. With that said, the overall score did go down a little bit, and we knew that that was going to happen that first year. We know as we build the program and as we get kids to understand the seriousness of the purpose of their signing up for the AP and that they will be taking the exam, that those scores are going to rise. All right. You can see it in comparison to Connecticut and to the nation on that first slide there. Following that is a breakdown of all the different tests in each year of the courses that we have offered or students have enrolled in through VHS. Questions for me?
No, but I have a question for the Michael, do you want to go first?
Sure, just a quick question. The 5-year school score summary, that represents both juniors as well as seniors, correct?
It does, yeah. This is not actually broken down by seniors only, so it does represent the total enrollment, correct? Yep. And I gave you the number of seniors so you can break out the number of juniors.
Peter?
Well, I just wanted to interject the thought that I had interjected at another meeting about public relations. There are certain aspects of every educational system that needs to be publicized to a broader perspective of the public. And we haven't, from my perspective, been very successful at getting some of the things that we're doing here, which without having done a comparison analysis with another school system, whatever, but based on what I've heard tonight, and we've heard it for several years, the public, I think, needs to know about these things more than anything, because parents make decisions based on the academic criteria of your educational system. And so I think at some point in the future, we should look at coming up with a more productive public relations campaign regarding the school system. I think it would help us. I think these are the things that people look for, who are thinking, why would they come here? Why would they go out of their way to come here? Why would they move here? So your school system and its accomplishments is very important, and it does drive people to move to your district. So maybe we get the superintendent at some point in the future, yeah.
All right. Anyone else for Todd? Michael?
Just another question in terms of what that means for an individual student when they do score a 5 or a 4 on the AP. Are they typically getting credit from the university? Or are they just getting exempt from entry-level courses? And do you see that really changing over the last few years?
So I think you hit on exactly the issues that go into what that means for students. I feel like we've done a better job both in our classrooms in AP and as a general school to try and educate our students as to what the resources are. One of the best resources is College Board itself. They have a great portal, and you can look up the school and find out what the AP policy is and how much credit they give per test score. So I think that's a great resource. Back to your point about what happens at the school. I think AP, in addition to providing great transcripts, for college admissions, for many of our students provides entry-level course credit or a chance to bump through past that first entry point so they get past the prerequisite and move on to the next course. And in some cases allows them the chance to be able to do things they couldn't have done, like go abroad. And what I mean by that is sometimes when you study abroad or you're looking at double majors, having those extra credits in your back pocket when you go into AP can really change the equation for you. And for some students, going in with credits in AP, because unfortunately this happens, they may not be successful in a semester or two, and having that credit can make sure that they graduate on time. And that's one of the stats that AP likes to tout, is that students that have AP credit or have taken AP classes typically graduate at a much higher rate at 4 years than their like peers.
Something else may not be common knowledge, but experiencing it here the last few years. The number of AP credits, or the number of credits that you have as a college student, puts you in the registration queue. So you don't get lumped as junior, freshman, sophomore, et cetera. You get queued by the number of credits. So you can be a freshman who, this person exists, went into their freshman year with 38 credits, all AP.
Yeah.
So when they were registering for their courses, they were actually sophomores,
right.
And which means they were getting in courses while their friends were getting blocked out of courses. That was something new for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I never really considered that aspect of it. So I think that's another important feature besides not needing to take, for example, calc again, right? But getting yourself more seniority for the courses you want is an important feature.
Nice.
All right, Valerie?
Well, I'm just looking through, and if I'm reading this right, you have the scores on the far left per class, per subject. It's really, really impressive to see the numbers here, that we had 21 kids take calculus, AB, I'm
you're doing
sorry,
that right.
Physics was amazing. Psychology,
19
32.
for physics.
These are not easy and time consuming. 13 studio art, 2D design portfolio. I think it just shows a wide range of real interest, and some of these scores are just totally amazing.
Thank you, Val. And I would second that, and I guess I'm repeatedly excited at how well our students do across the range of the curriculum. And you'll have a student that is taking physics, but also is doing AP Studio Art. So our kids really do get involved in so many things, as we have seen in so many ways.
Michelle?
I wanted to thank you, Todd, because this is it's great information and it's exciting, and I'm also encouraged by the participation in the classes. And I just have a question. I was looking at the lists of the classes, and I was wondering if you could tell me which ones were taken through virtual high school. I
Sure.
think the only one I recognize as definitely is probably human geography.
Correct. Yeah, you're right
and
on with that one.
And I just want people to look. There were only 3 students, but they scored 4s and 5s.
did well,
So
yeah.
they did really well
Yep.
through virtual high school. And I was just wondering, did anyone else take an AP class through virtual high school?
Yep, so the first one, if you go down the list, is art history. That was a VHS course.
Okay. They passed. Got a 3.
You already identified human geography. I didn't memorize them, sorry.
That's okay.
And then United States government and politics,
Ah,
the other one.
awesome.
And this year we have some new ones, so I'll be excited to report that next year.
Sorry, can I ask a follow-up?
yes.
Does anyone take, or I don't know if we allow it, or if it just happens on occasion that somebody might take biology or something because of scheduling conflict? Do we have any other sort of singleton AP VHS, or no? Does that not happen? I don't
So
know.
typically, the VHS is offered to students that, for classes that are not offered within our school schedule.
Okay, so, no.
Anyone else?
Is it because we don't allow it, or is it just because there were no conflicts last year? For example, if somebody wanted to take several AP classes and we offer them all live, but they conflicted with each other, and so they chose to take one.
I think that's a case-by-case basis that we would
Okay.
make that decision. But our current contract with the teachers union states that if a course is offered, then the student needs to take it here in the live class with the teacher, instead of through VHS. That was part of the agreement that we entered in when we came into the VHS consortium.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Michael?
Asking a lot of questions today, sorry. Maybe it's because I have a senior. I know we have many students that take the UConn ECE.
Correct.
And I'm just wondering if you can kind of briefly, I know it's probably complex, but briefly explain how that provides students. Is it comparable to taking an AP course in their applications? Is it superior in some ways?
So I think ECE, Early College Experience, is a dual enrollment program. It allows students, while they're here at school, to get UConn credit if they engage in that program. Slightly different philosophies. End of course exam is the AP philosophy for getting the credit in the course. And the ECE is more the experience of going through the course, and our teachers are adjunct professors. Similar cost structure, and I think ECE and AP are in direct competition. At least that's what I saw when I went to the ECE presentation at UConn. It was pretty clear that they would like to take over a lot of the business that AP has. So for our students, there's benefits of both. And I think ECE, the nice thing about it for our students is you get a UConn transcript. It looks like you were at Storrs campus, and that transcript, especially with the prominence of the University of Connecticut, has become more portable. I think AP is much more widely recognized, but UConn credit now is becoming synonymous in many ways to AP. And so for students, through that experience, they could even double up. And some schools may take both, or they may just choose or make you choose one or the other. But I think for a student that knows their day-to-day curriculum is going to, and interaction with the curriculum is much stronger than maybe that one-time exam, ECE sometimes can be a better option for them through that process.
Alan?
Well, Todd, this is great. I'm watching the evolution over the years, and as we succeed more in the AP world is wonderful, obviously for the kids and what we're offering them, but also as much as we wrestle with the PR issues, as Pete pointed out, it's very good to be able to present this to people who want to see a rigorous AP program in a school, and the show that we offer this and the success that's going on here is really is wonderful. I have a question about, my question is probably my usual one, but I think we're developing, so I'll probably get a different answer from you. The fact that we now have stressed the choice of either a final or the AP exam, but stressing that the AP exam is mandatory in
This year.
This year.
Yep.
Has been wonderful to boost the number of people taking the exams, which kind of qualifies Shepaug a little bit, or quantifies, I should say, that's always been my discussion, is there's so much that qualifies us in the arena of competitive secondary schooling, but sometimes it's difficult for us to get on the quantification bandwagon, and this is one way to do that. Obviously, college acceptances are the other. So this is your quantification packet you give us every year at this time. So we're on the way there to the process of expanding our numbers so that we, the flag goes up and we can be counted that way. And knowing this is developing, my concern was, and still is, and as I said, I think your answer might be different now, is that technically, usually, traditionally with an AP, you have a gate at some point. You either allow any student who wants to take an AP course to take it, but knowing that they're going to have varied success on the very firm barometer of an AP exam, the exam isn't mandatory. Or the gate is in front, and only certain students who have demonstrated the potential for achieving a 3 or above are permitted to take the course, in which case, in that case, the mandatory exam, you've kind of been cleared for that. Now, what we've opted to do in Shepaug is to have no gates at either end, which is, I feel, must be a step in development, because I wonder whether it does students a service to take the AP exam if they're going to get a 1, and it's not just for the indicatory score, which I'm also concerned with, and I'll get to that in a second, but just for their own, what they're gaining from the course, or what they might have gained by taking a different course that they would absorb at a different rate and do better at, get a different score on a final exam as opposed to an AP exam. So whether it serves them well to participate in a situation where they're going to appear as, some here with a great percentage of the kids are taking the APs and getting 1s or 2s. But then on the other end, and as I said, I don't ever mean for this question to appear as if my first concern isn't for the kids, but it's also a concern for the efforts that we make to rank, to appear as quantifiably wonderful as we truly are qualifiably. And a lot of the rankings nationally or even statewide, rank a school based on its students scoring on APs. So not only am I concerned about the value of a mandatory AP exam without any filtering of students who take the AP courses, effect on the student's education, but also, of course, on the way they end up in our ranking. So this is the longest way I've ever asked this question, but it's to make sure that people understand how I'm coming to this. I'm not trying to come at it, in a black and white way, or in a, merciless, the heck with what people are learning. I just care about what the numbers look like. I really want you to know that I'm being trying to be circumspect about this, but that personally I'm concerned that I'm hoping that this is a step so that a gate will be placed at one end so that we can close the gap on that ranking. Does that make sense?
So, Alan, that was a really long.
Yeah.
I
didn't want to. It's a tricky question I'm asking, and I wanted to make sure I phrased it as diplomatically as possible.
I think there was quite a few questions in there, so I'll try my best to try and get at some of them. I think, again, back to the statistics of the percent of our students have access to AP and being so much different than other schools. When we talk about recruiting families or having the opportunities for students and why young families may choose Shepaug, that would be one of the biggest selling points right there, is because students, when they enter Shepaug, majority of them have a chance of accessing the AP curriculum, where at other schools they would not. If they went to larger schools, we're looking at 20 to 30% of students that would have the opportunity to be able to find out what it takes to be college successful. And we say, and we have for a long time, that we are preparing students for that next step. And we look at 89 to 90% of our students going on to that next step. And so if we're really preparing them for what it takes to be successful in a college class, we need to have them know what that looks like, right? And part of that is that experience of AP. And hopefully, through that experience, they're going to learn what kind of student they are and how they're going to succeed. So I guess the question then comes back to the board, and this question came up again last year as well, is do we set up gates? Do we put limits on who can go in and look at that only top 10 or top 15% of students at our school that can access the AP curriculum because we know they're going to be successful, score 3 or higher as AP demonstrates the benchmark? Or do we know that the value of having more students take AP that's going to get them to that level of experience where they're going to be more successful learners and therefore, I would argue, more successful at college? Is that of value? And I think last year there was quite a bit of discussion among the board, and this may be something that is ongoing and may need more discussion than tonight, because that was a long question. Very much so. And I think something that we, and I go back to Peter about the PR piece of it, we need families to know that majority of our students are able to access our AP curriculum. And at other schools, they are not. If you go to another school, some of the area larger schools, you're not going to have that same level of access. Part of that is because of size. In the last school I was at, we had 2,200 kids, and we had very limited access, and it was a very tight pyramid to get into AP because of that. We just didn't have the seats. And so because of that competitive model, for those limited seats, we had a lot of people fighting to get into those seats.
Michelle. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to briefly say that I think the model that we have is great, and I feel fortunate that we can provide that opportunity to those students, because I think I get the whole public rating of the school, but what a great experience to be able to figure that out in high school before you get in college and you're paying thousands of dollars for a class. Better to figure out that physics maybe isn't your thing here in high school. So I think that, or it is, but I think I just also want to say that I have a lot of confidence in the guidance department and the faculty here, that they're talking with the students. They know who's going to struggle, and they're checking in and saying, "Are you really sure?" And they're looking at those students who are signing up for 3 or 4 AP classes, and they're really letting them know that that's a huge load and to think about that carefully. And so I think that there is counseling going on before they're signing up, and then students are allowed to struggle in a safe environment, and I think that's great.
Greg?
No.
I've looked at various numbers trying to figure out how many potential AP courses you could offer. I mean, the last number I saw was that there are 38 subjects that they seem to have identified. I guess it would seem to me it would be, in the 12 we offer, it would probably be unusual for someone to take all 12 of these AP courses here. So there are certain subject areas that might overlap or might not overlap in terms of one person's ability. It's my understanding that a lot of universities look, if you want to get into an honors program, you need a hefty number of AP courses. That's one way to do it. Mm-hmm. And I guess the question is, I would think we would want to offer as many as we could. What's the biggest impediment to being able to offer more?
I think it's the size of the student body. If you had a lot more, you just have less students currently, because you're already looking at, I don't remember what the exact stat was off the top of my head, but I thought it was 72%. Let me look. 72%, yep, I did have it off the top of my head, of students that were already enrolled in AP. So, to push the number beyond that, I think you're really pushing into students that may not be of the mindset to be AP ready, that may not have the capability. And so you've already got a majority of the students that are engaged in AP.
Right, I understand. But if someone were wanting to, I think your growth may not be in more students, a larger percentage taking AP. But what about more AP courses for any given student? When you see that there are multiple language courses that are offered in AP, when you see there are things in music, but we don't offer any AP courses in music, for example, And so I guess the question is whether it wouldn't seem to me it would be the number of students necessarily, unless the problem were you just weren't going to offer AP if you had 3 students wanting to take the course.
Well, I think we've sort of answered that question in some ways through VHS, because we do provide access to all of the APs through VHS. So students could take it that way. At some point, we get a zero-sum return because a student, say they're taking 7 APs, and I have a student this year that's doing that. All right, so at 7 APs, or between junior and senior year, he'll have taken 7 APs. At 7 APs, you are talking about the majority of your day here and the majority of your night. And in addition, many of our students are highly engaged in a lot of extracurricular activities. And we know that, and we love that about our students, right? They're on the sports field, and they come back and they do play until 11 o'clock at night. And then they get up the next day and do it again. And at some point, there has to be a balance. And so for those students, and there are a select few that probably 7 APs make sense. Expanding that beyond that, when you talk about 2 or 3 level college level courses for a student that's in high school with everything else that they have on their schedule, it becomes a balance point for them. And it's a decision for that student and their family. Does this make sense? And at what point do I get a better return out of taking more APs versus of falling off the cliff of not being able to handle that load? And so that balance.
But the students they're competing against in other states and other universities who come from schools that offer, like, for example, Greenwich High School, which offers every AP course, high schools in Minnesota that offer 31 or more AP courses. I mean, they're competing against students who have at least 12 APs on their transcript.
I would argue that there's very few students that are in that range. I'd be interested to see that.
Well, let me tell you something. There's enough of them that you need at least that many if you want to get into.
I mean, the percentage of the high school specifically.
I mean, I'm looking at some of the universities in your earlier presentation that we got into, and I noticed that there were. I mean, we had one student in an Ivy League school. We had another 9 in public Ivies. We had 7 in other extraordinary universities. I mean, you're looking at probably 20% of your class going to some of the top schools in the country. That is an amazing statistic.
Yep.
That's reason enough to keep the school open. If the earlier presentation of the White House thing if that wasn't enough to keep the school open, certainly the fact that 20% are going to some of the top universities, that really is a tremendous achievement. And so I'm wondering if we can't take the next step, which is not only do we want them to go to those universities, but we want them to place extraordinarily high in those universities. Because we're already achieving great things. Let's take it another step. And I wonder if there's any possibility. I recognize you need teachers. You need to have faculty that are qualified to teach an AP course. They may have to take extra courses or may have to get certified to do that. I recognize that might be an impediment, but I wondered what the major impediment was. I know it's hard when you have 2 kids that are going to take AP music theory, for example. You're probably not going to offer it except through maybe virtual high school if someone wants to do that. But I'm just wondering how we can increase the opportunities for students who are extraordinarily academically inclined, who are going to these fabulous schools and want to be able to get into the high.
Can I just say, why are we criticizing success? Why are you dumping more on these children who are doing really well? The results are here. We are growing our success all the time, and if we have 30 AP courses, you're not necessarily going to have a happier student body or a more successful student body. I mean, congratulations. I love this presentation. I think your department is doing excellent work. Frankly, more importantly, I think our kids are doing excellent work.
And I agree with
and they should also just enjoy themselves.
Greg, I'm sorry. You can.
Well, my question is, apparently you didn't listen to me, Valerie, because what I said was, no, you didn't, because what I said was, we have accomplished phenomenal things. This number of students in top universities is spectacular. All I'm asking is there an impediment? Is there something? Because if we the board are trying to create the best school possible. And that's one of the things we identified when I was involved in the long-range planning. We identified that as a good goal for the school. The question is, do we have impediments other than the size of our student body that could help us get even better? I'm not suggesting every student wants to take 12 AP courses. But if you want to be in an honors program at a public Ivy, you're going to need that many, or you're not likely to get in. And so the question is, if kids want to go in that direction, is there an impediment? Is there something we can do something about that would help you take it to that kind of level? I don't know. I'm just asking, because if we don't ask, we don't know.
I believe, I'm a quick response, but I believe we're in the right direction. And I think students are moving towards taking more AP, and they understand the emphasis on it, and they're seeing their peers do that, and I think that will have a building effect over time.
Dr. Costantino, did you want to add anything?
I just wanted to say that we're trying to look at our delivery of instruction in a more flexible way, so that maybe we're going to be able in the near future to offer some more summer courses through VHS, and maybe through the local colleges. Todd and I are going to meet about doing some dual enrollment, and I think that will allow those students who want more to have those opportunities. So if you give us, you know, a couple of months, we'll come back to you with some more ideas.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else? Michael.
Thank you for that, Dr. Costantino. I totally agree with what you're saying, Todd, about the AP arms race, which is happening among some certain competitive high school students, and I think it's a real, I mean, I'm an AP teacher. I believe in the AP. I think it's wonderful for students to have that challenge, but I think taken to an extreme of taking, you know, 4 or 5 APs in a year, you're basically telling them, we want you to do everything that you're doing in college, and we're going to put additional requirements on top of you. It often makes, and I see it, it makes for miserable, miserable students in their junior and senior year. And hopefully we're interested in educating the whole child, not just producing a bunch of, you know, Ivy League robots. And what was interesting to me going around to many colleges is that I think colleges are getting that message too. I think I heard admissions directors saying, we're not interested in that. We want students who are well-rounded. We don't want students who have focused all of their energy and all of their time solely on academics. So,
Jen, did you have anything or no?
Well, they just all said it, so I just am very grateful to what Todd has done, and I appreciate the report that you gave us. But I also appreciate your commitment to every single student in our school, and I see that, and I appreciate the effort that all of you do.
All right, anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
All right. Item 9, Ag STEM. 9.1, right sizing of building project. There is no presentation by Castle Booze, but
Can I ask
yes.
a couple of questions here?
Hold on.
And it's late.
Let me just finish the introduction.
Go ahead.
Please. Right sizing of the building project. Mr. Cava, as chairman of the building committee, do you have anything that you can add here?
Yes, I will.
Then Valerie will answer your questions.
Yes, I'll answer them.
I think the term right sizing of the building project is not the right way to phrase it. What the building committee is looking at is some of the issues that were raised by DAS, which are that it's not so much that the numbers don't add up to an Ag STEM program, it's that the numbers that don't add up to the school we've got, that we have a lot of square footage for the relative number of students we have. And part of the reason for that is we've had declining enrollment, but part of it is we had a lot of wasted space in the building in terms of space that's not allocated. When I say wasted, I shouldn't say wasted, I should say space not allocated to a classroom or a core educational mission. You've got a large mall, you've got a large cafeteria, you've got locker rooms that are larger than what we need, you've got this academic space is probably much larger. So the idea came, is it possible to put any more of the Ag STEM program in the building? And the answer is yes, it is. And those are the plans we're looking at to see if we can minimize the size of the academic edition. You can't really minimize the size of the animal buildings, but you can minimize the size of the actual addition necessary for that, and make better use of the space we have in the building. This can be done without any reduction in the Ag STEM program, so it's still the full program. Nothing's being taken out, and it can be done without any negative impact or any reduction in the programs being offered in the school. We simply have a lot of space for the number of students we have, and if we use it more wisely, we can probably do more with what we've got. And I think that's part of it. It's part of what our initial process was when we started this, which is that we were going to get a presentation made, we were going to get a building, and when we came to actually looking at the actual building of it, we were going to continue to value engineer the project. That's what we're doing, and that's where we are.
So,
Go ahead.
actually, it wasn't, what we decided, it's what the state told us in that letter. And I think it was an appropriate thing to say. So we have a lot of people very interested in our process, and frankly, there are a lot of really upsetting rumors going around because we haven't really addressed a lot of this. We did go to a meeting, the town of Washington invited the board members from Washington. It was, I think, a very good meeting. When they were apprised, finally, that we had the letter from the state, which once again reaffirms their commitment to our, I'll call it ag STEM, because ASTA sounds like a dog. But, we still have a lot of people wondering what's going on, not the least of which is me. And rumors are rolling. And unfortunately, during public comment, we can't engage. But one of the rumors was this email that I got, many emails this weekend, people dying to do new cash flows and tell us why we're losing millions of dollars and that we're not calculating enrollment right. And then this one just kind of amazed me I just learned through a very reliable source that the reason the board hasn't prepared cash flows for the public is that the project will lose money and have decided to subsidize 25 students and try to get Danbury to remove its cap by offering free busing. So everyone's rolling around on all of this, and I kept telling people, come Monday, come here. We're supposed to find out some beginning of the detail of Castle Booze. Now that we know we want to live under our roof in part, which makes great sense because we have excess capacity, where's Castle Booze? What are they doing? Why don't we have some underlying preliminary numbers?
Well, Castle Booze has produced some conceptual plans. They had questions. They wanted to know whether certain types of design changes or things, would be appropriate. They had questions about whether they'd be appropriate for the program. What they have done is they have produced some potential drawings, drawings that show different possible ways of doing it. And we have made, I think, indications that certain changes have to occur, and then it also has to be run by the faculty that are involved, the education professionals, in making sure that the arrangements of things meet with their needs in terms of the educational program, and then we'll have a presentation to the board. I suspect that we will, as soon as we have that work has gone on, they will come up with a plan that makes sense, and that plan will then come to the building committee. We'll schedule a special meeting. We'll review that plan, and if we believe that that's where we think it is, we'll present it to the board. But we're not ready to do that yet because we're in the process of going back and forth, trying to see how best to incorporate this, how to make as minimal a change to the existing programs that are in the building, so that we do this in an organized way and we have it in the right parts of the building. But there are different plans different ideas that they had, and some of them I think will be good. They'll be very good. They'll actually increase the efficiency of the program.
Well, why couldn't they have stayed? I saw some suits leave earlier on. Why couldn't they have stayed and have said, and we are all going to be very patient and wonderful people and know it's all very preliminary, but I'd like to have seen it. And there are a lot of people here in support and those that have questions who have come out to either urge us or ask questions or ask that we dispel some rumors, and this keeps going on the agenda. Art Carney and Jackie Gleason, Art Carney kept kind of pushing up his sleeves, and he was just going to do something and it never happened. Well, I'm seeing that with Castle Booze or the building committee, with all due respect.
Well,
we've got a little bit of a crisis management out here, if nothing else, a PR problem, because it looks like people want us to go ahead, yet we're still sitting.
Well, this is interesting because people want you to go ahead. You're still sitting. People want you to, people have issues or concerns about the numbers or about whether this adds up to that. And the building committee is attempting to do a thorough and complete job of evaluating the proposals, trying to put something together rather than throwing things out that aren't ready. Now, if when you go to see a Broadway show, you want to see all of the way it was constructed, and you want to see every rehearsal and how they decided to put that in and change that, I suggest you go to the rehearsals. I mean, if you want to see it, if you're interested, come to the building committee. The meetings are open to the public. You can come. We had a meeting tonight at 6 o'clock where we met with Castle Booze, and they showed us various plans, and we're in the process of doing it. We're not ready. And I, frankly, as sitting on this board, if Michelle, for example, had a policy that she wanted to bring from the policy committee, and instead of bringing the policy to us to review, she brought us every potential iteration and draft, we would be here all night, every night. And I know you've got rumors out there, but I can't control the rumors. Anyone that's interested should come to the building committee meeting if they want to see what we're talking about. We're doing it all up front and in the public. And when anyone has asked me when our meetings are or when we've scheduled them for, I have responded and told them. And
Which
so
brings
they're
me to another issue.
they're
I'm
fine.
kind of confused why the 6 o'clock meeting was going to be, could have been canceled or not. I mean, is it because Castle Booze was maybe not coming?
No, it's because we left that. I wanted people to pay attention to the meeting, because if the plan that they were working on was not ready, there was no point in having a meeting. I don't bring the volunteers that serve on that committee who are not on the board, a lot of them not on the board. I don't bring those people to a meeting at which there's nothing to do. And the question was whether there were some plans discussed last week. We had some issues and concerns we wanted addressed. We wanted to make sure we put as much of the portions of the building that could be put inside our building. We wanted to maximize it. We wanted to get to the most efficient level. And so there were plans that needed further work, and I hadn't seen them as of this morning. Okay, so they were still working on them throughout the day to prepare for tonight's meeting, and hence I didn't want the members of the committee to hear that the meeting was canceled, and if it was canceled late in the day because they were still working on the plans, I wanted them to pay attention to their notifications so that they didn't come to the meeting unnecessarily.
So did they bring those plans?
Yes, they brought plans. We looked at them, and they
Why
still
couldn't
need
they have
work.
shared those with the whole board?
Because they're not ready to share with the board. They're not finished. We're still working on them.
This is a public endeavor. We have a lot of interested people out there, and I spent a whole weekend trying to get someone clawing off the ceiling about whether our cash flow was going to be negative or positive by millions. I'd rather not have been spending that time, and all I can do is say, it's on the agenda for Monday. And that letter, by the way, that came from the state, which I read at the meeting at the Board of Finance, is key. It is so key. And a lot of people aren't aware of it. And frankly, I didn't even know if I should be broadcasting it, but of course it's public information, that they asked us to downsize the project and put some of that within our walls, but they have again endorsed the program. That's wonderful. That's appropriate, but a lot of people don't know that, and there's a lot of concern out there. And once again, rumors. And I'd like to dispel that with fresh air, with conversations here in the public. I know you have a building committee meeting, but it was on the agenda, and I looked forward to a presentation on a preliminary basis. And we get nothing.
Mr. Chairman, could I just
Yes.
could I interrupt the dialogue, although it's very interesting. Like Ms. Anderson, I'm not on the building committee, but from my perspective, Greg, it seems that you are moving as fast as humanly possible, and I want to thank you for everything that you've done so far. I mean, it's a lot of work, a lot of planning, and you are correct that if you came before the board and before the public with only half of the questions answered, you would be crucified, and that would not be good for the board, and that would not be good for you or your committee members. So thank you for doing a thorough job. Thank you for trying to get it as close to ready as you possibly can before you come to the board. I appreciate that. And I guess, Valerie, that's why they pay us the big bucks, because we have to
But it's-
handle the rumors
But I'm not.
and answer
I'm
those
not
questions.
criticizing Greg so much as Castle Booze and the fact that we have an anxious community. And I just would like to see preliminary information. And I'm ready to work with whomever about cash flow statements. But, you know, we have to really pull up our sleeves now. And it's not the building committee, Greg, it's our project. And I don't think we're out in the open as much as we can be. And more importantly, that our architects are not helping us broadcast the progress.
Are you satisfied with Castle Booze right now, Mr. Cava?
I am. I mean, I don't know how to say this any other way, but this board discussed at great length whether or not to proceed with this procedure. This board put on public hearings. It held public hearings. It conducted a referendum. It had a vote, and then after the vote, it formed a building committee and delegated to the building committee the pursuing of the project, and that's what we're doing. And I think on this, when we get this to the level that we believe that the academic professionals are happy with the layout, the building committee is happy with the layout, then it's going to have to be costed in order to figure out what the numbers are. So any information that you would have gotten from a presentation tonight would have done nothing to enable you to answer those questions until you actually have the cost of this building and the extent to which it is less than the cost that was presented at referendum. Because at that point, then you may have a clearer, it may be more clarified. That is, if you're satisfied with the numbers of students that are attending. Those issues are not for the building committee. The building committee is there for one purpose, and that is to design and present and prosecute the construction of the improvements. And that's what we're doing. And we're at that design stage, and because of the state's concerns about the underutilized space in the existing building, we've had to ask for additional conceptual plans, which we have done at a third of the cost that we asked the board to authorize us to spend in order to know which direction we wanted to head in and whether we would feasibly be able to accomplish the purposes of DAS. The answer is yes, we should be able to do it. I'll have the full answer when I've heard from the academic departments and their review of it as to whether we have any issues with this. But we have put just about all that we could possibly put in the building. So I think at this point we've made it as efficient the process as possible. I mean, if you want to look at those things, I still have them here. I haven't taken them home yet. But,
I would have loved a presentation.
Not
because
ready.
We all know that everything is just beginning, but we were promised at our last meeting some kind of preliminary information. That's all. So what timeline for presentation did you give Castle Booze? When did you want them to come back to you for, you know, a little bit more detailed presentation?
As soon as we've heard from as soon as we've had, my guess is they'll have a plan, another plan in a few days, and that plan will go to our academic people for their evaluation to determine, you know, Kim and her staff, to determine whether or not this works, and they don't have any issues with the layout of the building and how, and the proximity of one classroom to another. And when we're finished with that, then at that point, we'll be able to present it to the board.
Do you think November 7th, business meeting? It might be on the agenda?
No, it won't be on the agenda on the November 7th business meeting. Because today is October the 17th, and my guess is that at the very least, we will be finished with it probably the week before or right before that meeting, and then there'll still be costing and estimates and whatnot. We'd like to make sure we have the total picture so you have a complete plan. It may be on that agenda, but it probably won't. I just don't want you to, having been disappointed tonight not to have had a presentation, I don't want to disappoint you again. So I'm just telling you, we may have it on that meeting, we may not, but right now it's going to be done in an appropriate manner. We are trying to move this along as quickly as possible, but it is more important that it be right than it be fast. And that's where we are. And we do not have a looming date that causes us to say we need this done by November 7th or November or the meeting after that. We'd like to have it done in November. Right. And preferably the earlier meeting, but there's not, you know, it's not 100% sure.
Have a looming date.
Alan?
We kind of have a looming date. We have I'll talk more about this later when we get to the projected enrollment, which is the revenue side of this issue. And what we're talking about in terms of your project now, Greg, is the cost side. And those things have all been in flux for the last several months. But we do kind of have a date because this all together, what we're talking about 9-1, what we'll be talking about 9-2, all feature in being shovel-ready at some point, and then being not only have a viable project, but one that will be voted on by the legislature and funded, we hope, in June or so. So we have some kind of a timeline or a deadline or something around, right, Greg, that we need to get this finalized so that we have time to approve it versus revenue, and then decide to go shovel ready or not in time to accomplish something to fulfill our requirements in June, right?
Yes. But when I say a looming date, I mean there is not a November 8th looming date. Other than the fact that it's election day, it's not a looming date. So what I'm telling you is that yes, we will have this done. It may be at the first meeting in November. It may be at the second meeting in November. But we will have this ready for you to approve, to move forward with or not move forward with at that time. I just don't know which meeting it is yet, and I hesitate to promise things until I've seen all the pieces. Because as it was explained to me, because we make a change or ask for something, it doesn't just pop out of the computer in 4 seconds. It has to be engineered, and they have to look at the mechanical engineering of it and other things. So it's a little bit more deliberative process than you would think.
Anthony.
So, I mean, there is a date out there, but I guess we heard Wednesday night at the meeting with Washington that even if we green-lighted the project tonight, there isn't enough time left on the calendar for Castle Blues and ONG to do what we believe is defined as being shovel-ready. So if that's the case, you know, I've kind of lost it. What's really the back pressure on us to move at a clip that is going to result in some forced errors, which I don't think anybody wants. So, Greg, I'm agreeing with you that we ought to move, but I don't see what the back pressure is. If we knew that we needed everything done by November 1st or December 1st, and that's the cut date before we to become shovel ready by the vote in the spring, then I would say, yeah, we got a date to work to. But if we green-lighted the project tonight and we can't get there, then we don't have that pressure. So
yeah, I'm not sure that's the case, though. I'm not sure that if we green-lighted it tonight, or if we green-lighted it a week from now or 2 weeks from now, I don't know that we can't get there.
So I would ask, then if that's the question, I mean, you should be in the best position, right, to understand, you know, how much time K&B and ONG really need to become shovel-ready and back off from the date that the bill goes for a vote, right? And roughly back off and figure out what is that drop-dead date. So if we can get clarity around that, I think that would help.
We're working on that. We are working on that. I've asked that question.
So instead of us speculating, if let's get an answer from the two contractors, and then we'll all be smarter about where we sit and whether or not we have a date that's looming. So that said, there are, before we can get to a set of final financials, right, we after we finish this, we're supposed to be talking about enrollment, which is a very big part because that's the revenue side of the cash flow. We can use, you know, we don't know if Bethel is in or out. You know, we have a date in December. We're dealing with Danbury. The state reimbursement rates are in flux. We won't know we really won't know what the final economics are going to be until the state makes a decision. They may stay where they are. They can get better. They can get worse. We don't know. So, you know, there's a list of things that have to happen before we can finish the economics to really understand some of the conclusions that some people are jumping to. You know, and right now, you know, there's a number of combinations of permutations that any of us can come up with that'll say we're losing X, we're losing Y, we're breaking even. right now, I think it's an exercise that's not going to add any value. I think what would add value is understanding all of the open to-dos and focus on knocking them off and getting them done, as correctly, Greg, as you say, as we know how.
If I might then, could you prepare some target dates, January, February, I don't know when, so that, you know, we can see the end of this sausage-making process. And it's important because we have people coming to these meetings, leaving children at home, getting babysitters, bringing their children, telling us how they feel, which I greatly respect, and they're really enthusiastic. And we also have people who are very, very concerned, asking for more information. And here it is on the agenda, and nothing happens. So don't put it on the agenda until we have something to say. And please, we need to have a timeline. I'm not holding anyone to it. Things happen, snowstorms in January, spring will come, I don't know. But at least we know what we're aiming towards, because maybe I'm the idiot here. I was under the impression that we were really digging in November, and that seems not to be the case. And I don't want to promise people who ask me about cash flows and income levels and long-term out 20-year losses, which I would love to refute, without good information. So just tell us. I mean, the timeline now extends to January. Is that a correct statement?
No.
Nobody said
that.
Well, then tell us.
He just said he will try to have it on
I
the
will
early
try to
November.
get you an answer, but the reason we put it on the agenda is not because we wanted to disappoint you or cause such angst. We put it on the agenda because if it required action, it needed to be noticed on the agenda when the agenda was posted. We thought when this agenda was put together and readied for it that we would have the answers we needed. But the first set of plans required further work. And that required a second set of plans that required further work, and we're trying to get to the point of having a set of plans we can bring to you. I will not bring it to you until it is ready to bring to you, and I'm not making the plans, so there's not much I can do.
So
They're not
Castle
my plans.
Blues
I don't have
disappointed.
CAD on my computer, if you might let me finish, and I don't produce these. They're produced by Castle Booze, and they produce them when they have the answers they need in order to do it, and that's what we're doing. We're trying very hard, Valerie, but you seem to think that there's some perfection level that we can reach when we don't control all the pieces in this thing.
I
And I
keep
know
saying
you're getting
preliminary.
May I finish?
Preliminary.
Come on, please. May I finish? I know you're getting questions. I know there's angst out there, but we're trying to do this right. We're trying to produce something that can get us over the goal line of obtaining the funding we need at the next legislative session. That's the goal we're all working toward. And what I hope to have for you next time is something approximating a critical path document so you have some idea of when you need to know things and when you need to have things done in order to finish them. And also that we'll have a plan we can present and say, we hereby recommend that the board approve this going forward as this is the changes we want to make to the original plan as it was presented, and here is what we believe to be the cost of the result of the changes in terms of the cost of the project. And if the board says we need to value engineer it further, we'll value engineer it further and see if we can reduce those costs. But we do have some control over that in terms of being able to make changes to get the cost in line with what's going to work, and that's what we're trying to do. But we can't do it instantly, and frankly, I'm disappointed, as you are, that I didn't have by today something that was more final. But every time it gets presented, ideas come up, and we have to work through them. That's part of the construction process. I'm sorry.
So, from what I heard Greg say, he will try to have it on the November 7th meeting agenda, but if not, he thought it would definitely, is that fair to say, it should be on the agenda, meeting
No.
agenda by the end of November?
I heard he's going to give us some dates, not a presentation. And that's okay. I just want to know. And I think it's our public's right to know when they can vaguely expect to be given something tangible. And we all know it will be preliminary, things might change. But we don't want to have a placeholder on every agenda for Ag STEM unless there's a reason, and I understand that.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, that's Costino?
ready to do the second part.
All right, is there anything else on this? Any other questions for Greg? All right. 9.2, projected enrollment.
Just as a point of clarification, I'll be happy to work on a timeline with Castle Booze and the building committee. And also, I am meeting with Castle Booze this week, so I will make sure that I talk to them about getting those revised plans as soon as we can. And it is a process. It takes a while to massage the building, but we're getting there. And the other thing I just want to mention is that because we are now going to talk about enrollment and we are talking about resizing the building, the cost of the building and the original business plan that we did, the numbers have changed. So we cannot do a new business plan until we get solid numbers. So that's why the board has not put out a new business plan. So with that said, today, well, we started last week, but basically, we wanted to give the board enrollment projections based on the best way we can try to figure it out. There's a method to our madness. There's a lot of backup information I did not include tonight, but I wanted the board to see what the enrollment projections are based on what we know. So if you look at this sheet, the top piece gives you the population for 2021 in all of the sending towns, including Bethel and including Region 12. The 2024-25 number shows that the population decreases by 435 students, which is a decrease in population in our area by 5%.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
But just a point, because there was a question brought up, or suggestion, I think, brought up in the beginning of the meeting. The demographic numbers that you're showing here are demographic numbers that were produced by McMillan and Broom and/or Dr. Prada. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
And they were provided to us by those respective districts?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. They're not by Malone and McBroom. They're by Dr. Prada.
No.
No.
No,
Some
she's talking
towns
about.
used Malone McBroom, and some towns used Prada.
This is an aggregation, Jim,
Right.
of all of the sending towns.
Right. We used Dr. Prada. And we have that information. And that information was presented when we did the original business plan. So now what I tried to do is we tried to give information to the board and to use this exhibit as a possible revision to the business plan to decide on an enrollment population that they are comfortable with moving forward. Okay, so the first column has the applications that Nanoog received this year. So they received 48 applications from our sending schools that we have agreements in place, and then they received 9 from Bethel. So this year they received 57 applications. I was unable at this time to get the exact amount of kids that are there, but I can do that. But they had 57 applications. So now we go to 3 sets of numbers. The first set is the 3-year average of the enrolled students. It's in freshmen only, and it's the average of 2013, 14, and 15 at Nanoog. So what we did is we have all the enrollments from Nanoog of the students who are in the program, not the applications, in the program. And so what I also did is I capped Danbury at 4 kids across the board. And then Bethel is on the bottom because we have a pending agreement and we have a very low number for Bethel. And then the Region 12, I want to explain that why there are 2 lines of Region 12 here. The first line up on the top is the number of students based on the 3-year averages in 2013, 14, and 15. Okay? Right here. I'm sorry, the top here. This is like the top for me, and this piece is the bottom. You see how it says Region 12 twice? Okay, so the top Region 12 says what we did was that's the number of kids who average in those 3 years. What the state, in conversations with them, said to us is that we could have up to 20% of our kids from our school system in the agri-science. That's like the average. It's between 15 and 20% around the state of how many kids in the home school send kids to their agri-science. So the bottom one, Region 12, 15%, that number going across is the additional kids that we're expecting from our school to go to the Ag STEM.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, you that additional number of, let's say in the first column of 6, you add that to the 4 above in the Region 12, and that makes 15%? You're not adding
That makes 10 kids.
Right.
In 2021, the most conservative number is that there are 10 kids coming from our school.
Right, and that 10 is 15%. It's not the 6 is 15%
Right.
adding.
Right.
Okay, so in other words, that where it says Region 12, 15%, it's like to make 15%.
Well, it says on the bottom, the 15% student data is calculated on the projected enrollment for Region 12, which includes Sherman. Then we subtract the amount of kids from our number. So basically what we did, and I didn't bring all the numbers because I didn't want to confuse people. For example, if there were 176 kids in our school in 2021, we would subtract the 4 kids, and then there would be 172 kids, and then we would divide it by 4, because it's 4 grades, and then we would multiply it by 15%, and that's how we got 6. Want me to say it again? Yes. 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 We're not. Exactly. Okay. So basically, the first column has 39 students with the 2 students from Bethel. It would be 37 students if you didn't include Bethel. And what we did then is we then multiplied that by 4, because that is only the freshman class. And that's how we got to 156. Now, this is not an exact science, okay? This is just the most conservative numbers that I can give you. So the next column, 20, 24, 25, we did exactly the same thing, except that we went 5% less, because as I showed you up on top, our population declines by 5% in those years. And now again, these numbers are not exactly exact, because when you do the number individually, you get one percentage, and then when you do the number as a whole, you get a different. So it's the best we could do.
So just a question, you rounded up to the nearest whole student, Bob, or Pat?
Well, what we did, yes. Okay, so basically, you see the first 2 years, that's the 3-year average of enrolled students, freshmen only. Then we have, in the second column, is the number that we sent to the state. Now, of course, it's only 2 columns of what we sent to the state, but we wanted you to see the formula that we sent to the state. And basically, what Mr. Geeson did is he saw the percentage of the population of the kids that were going to Nonawag based on the population in different years. Am I right? You did a combination of years? Multiple years. And then he went to 2021 and he did that percentage. And then he went to 20, 24, 25, and he did that percentage. And that's where you see 156 and 148. Again, 2 kids from Bethel, which we don't have an agreement with yet, and Danbury capped at 4. Then the last column is the 3-year average. It's the first columns, but it's with the addition of 1. Because if you recall, the contract or the agreement with the sending districts is that they would send their 3-year average plus 1. So that's the last columns. What I want to remind the board of, and what was presented at the public hearing, was that these are very conservative numbers. We are confident, and I'll say this, I'll speak for myself, but we are confident that the modern program and the state-of-the-art facility, that the active marketing and recruiting campaign, that the large pool of candidates, I mean, see, even in 2024, 25, there's 8,316 students. When I look at these numbers, we're going to have more than 1 student from Sherman for sure come to our program. This year we have 15 students. I think we'll get more than 10 students from Shepaug to want to be in the program. So I think that these are conservative numbers, but from my office, this is the best way that I can show you. This is the bottom line, and at some point, the board has to decide what numbers are you going to stick with, because until you have some kind of population decision, and again, that's your decision, we can't move forward with a business plan. So that's my presentation. I hope it was understandable. We tried our best to be transparent and direct and...
Anthony.
So, let's start with Bethel.
Okay.
What was just the logic of going, because the 3-year average, if I'm not mistaken, I think was 4.
No, it's 2.
2, the 3-year?
Yeah, well, 13, 14, and 15. So I don't know.
Okay, can we double check that? Because I thought the last 3-year average was.
And it might, you know what, you may be right, and I just may have put it at 2 so that they wouldn't get.
Yeah, because that's really nature of my
No,
question.
this is what we have. In 2013, they had 1 student, 2014, 0, and 2015, 4.
Okay, so the question is then, are you using 2016, the last?
No.
When calculating the 3-year average?
No.
So you're using 2013, 14, 15 in the 3-year averages?
Because we do not have the number of students now. All we have is applications right now for 2016.
So that answers that question. Okay. My second question is one of, so we got two lines for Region 12.
Yes.
Right? It's really a question probably, Bob, for you. When we go to monetize these head counts, right? The existing, and I'm just testing if I understand your rationale, is the Region 12 line, that's the first one.
Put your mic on.
Yeah, your mic.
Okay. So the Region 12 line, that's in the box above. When we go to monetize those are children today that we're sending out on average to Region 14, right? They're costing us $68,032. Thank you, $6,832. Like I should know that number per student per year, right? Okay, so when they're going to our program, that's a net savings, and plus we'll pick up $3,200 from the state. So when we go to monetize that line of those Region 12 kids, they'll be worth they're worth, if you will, the same amount of tuition or revenue than the kids from any other kid from any other sending town to us, right? Because it's cost avoidance plus the pickup. And then the Region 12 kids below the line, the ones right above Bethel, are only going to be coming in at the 3,200. Okay, I think it's so going forward, as we think about if there this analysis or as we cap that, I think we want to try to make that clear so there's no confusion that one number is overstated, you know, versus one number that's understated, et cetera. Because it's important, because we are saving that money, and that's a cost avoidance. Yes, yeah. Thank you.
Valerie?
You said that school districts who have a program are capped at 20%, that we could never have more than 20% of Shepaug kids go?
No, they're not capped. They, when we did our original plan, we had more than 20% of our kids, and they felt that that was an inappropriate percentage.
So
you can have as many as you'd like in
Really?
the program, as long as you have seats and they're accepted and meet the criteria. We
Right.
just can't, in our plan to the state or to anyone, it's unreasonable to say more than 20%.
Okay, so you're just,
That'd be my guess, sorry.
Just to clarify that,
Right.
the original numbers reflected the participation rate that Region 14 was seeing out of their own student body.
what was that percentage?
I think it was the 20, yeah, it was 20.
So you
23,
brought
I
it down
think,
just to
23.
err on the side of being super conservative. And then the cost, right. And each child then, we would get 3,200 from the state of our own. And then you say cost avoidance, okay. But not 10,000.
Well, no, we have, so there's X number of students from Region 12 that are going to Nottawa. That's your base, right? So every one of those students that sort of return to us return at $10,000 per student. Every incremental Region 12 student that participates over and above that base is only bringing in 3,200. Right?
Anyone else? Alan?
Could you remind me, and I guess anybody listening, what was the original, just in terms of seeing the difference now, what was the original business plan population assessment? I remember we've heard of the number 196 a million times. Well, that was 196 from sending towns, and then there was another 30?
30.
So 226
total.
So then what we're looking at now, at least as we fold in what Greg's committee will turn up in the next 6 to 8 weeks, I guess, is we have to assess, I guess, best and worst case scenario, at least in terms of these numbers, of a revenue flow featuring at worst 148 in the future, and at best 184 in the future total, and then work that against. I just want to say that I really appreciate the public who came tonight, and I actually agree with everyone. I wholeheartedly agree with the parents who came and other families who came, hoping this project works for their children and for our towns and for the school. And I also agree with the concerned citizens, because we don't want this project to be dangerous for the towns either. And I think we're doing our due diligence here. Mm-hmm. I've said before that if we take what the people who are concerned about this at face value, and I want to, I felt that in the past, and there are other arguments that I think are rather specious and might lend people to think that they want to see this die at any cost. Because as I said, there are some strange arguments. But the one argument that I've wrestled with, which is very cogent, I've always felt, is the numbers argument. And now we're working on that. And it's not clear, and it's not easy, and to Valerie's dismay, we don't have an answer right off the bat. But at least we see what our playing field is now, so that we, you know, I believe, as I said, on face value, is that a lot of people who are really very skeptical might not be if we can get these numbers straightened out. And I think knowing that we're trying to should really make all the people who really want us to succeed happy too. But there's a big gap we have to work on, I guess. And Greg, are we in the position of not making this even more painful, but we have a goal to satisfy DAS's will in our new plan with Castle Booze. But let's say that plan, in its, you know, what you would consider the final-ish iteration soon, against these population projections, doesn't look as safe as what we held a referendum on. Can we then go further? Is there room to go further? You know, I'm thinking that there's got to be two goals here, and hopefully they're the same goal. One is to satisfy DAS, and two is to make our business plan work again. So I'm wondering if they're not in the same, you know, do you have ideas about how to make sure we get to the second step? Does that make sense? Good.
In a word, yes.
Good. That's all I need.
And that was my concern this weekend when I had all this intense cash flow demand put on me and being berated quite a bit because we didn't have it. I mean, our target to break even, pardon?
Were your children home? Your cash flow demands?
Yeah, they were. One was big time. But anyway, our break even in the olden days was 240 kids, and that included a larger population of our own, which is great. But what I kept saying to these people is that if we right size, and let me finish. I'm looking at Geeson's numbers originally.
Under the business plan, the break-even point was never 240. The break-even point was 196 that was expressed.
Plus 30.
Plus 30.
But the point is, that's the revenue side. I hate to call kids revenue, but they're revenue. And so I'm hoping with the right sizing, which is an appropriate word for this, that we'll have cost savings, that we won't need to hire, say, 2 more custodians or 2 more teachers, that there'll be a lot of cost savings in that cash flow. And that's what we need. We have to increase enrollment and decrease our overhead, and that's why I'm hoping that we would get some kind of numbers sooner rather than later. And who knows, maybe we would decrease our debt. Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing, the debt service? So that's why we're all working towards the same thing, and I'm glad to see these numbers, and I'm glad that they are very conservative. I think a lot of those people who have questions might agree going very conservative, cut costs, somewhat downsize, somewhat perhaps, if we're lucky, decrease debt is the way to go.
Peter?
Well, not for discussion or put a monkey wrench in this, but I don't know how anyone could predict student population for the next 20 years. I mean, you got to be off your rocker. I mean, to produce this plan, give it to the taxpayers and say, no problem, we'll fund it for the next 20 years and it won't cost you a dime. That's the apprehensive nature of this project. I would prefer to see it as a 10-year, but for 20 years out, you know I'm not the biggest supporter of this whole concept, and I'm not going to belabor it right now, but the towns are going to have to be willing to underwrite an operating loss, no doubt. Every town is going to be sent a bill at the end of the year to help underwrite this project. I don't see how you're going to make the numbers, and on top of that, you're not going to make them for 20 years because the state population, all the predictions are not upwards, they're downwards. So the board has to understand that, the chairman has to understand that, the public understands that there's a good chance the towns will be underwriting the program.
Okay. Anyone else? Anthony?
Yeah. Valerie, the points you brought up were good. you know, we, as I said before, I mean, there's a number of combinations. One, we've got to get our minds around what enrollment projection or range that we want to use, right? And then there's the cost side, and that needs to be examined as well. And I mean cost, I mean operating cost, right? So the original model had roughly, right, six teachers dedicated to Ag STEM. The premise of the original one was, and what was tested, not just a premise, but I know Kim and Dr. Pat put a lot of time and effort with Michelle going over the manpower or the staffing plan, because what we were testing for was if we brought so many incremental students into the facility or into the system, yes, we knew we needed to add cost for Ag STEM, but did we need to add any cost to the, I'll call the core or the base high school? And the answer was that we didn't, because we had enough capacity in the building as it's represented by teachers that we could absorb those kids. I.e., if we're averaging 14 kids in a class, we could almost, you know, theoretically, you could double that number and still have workable classes. I'm speaking very roughly here, but the idea was there's no incremental cost. So we have operating costs to run the ag program. 6 teachers, a custodian, you know, one of these, one of those. And when we have the final program and the building design set up, I think part of the to-do list, right, is to go back and really vet out the cost side to see, can we do with one less ag teacher? We had a requirement per, I think it's actually in one of the state regs, that there's a 35 to 1 ratio that we had. Bob? That's the max, right? But that was a test we were using that to say, but it's a two-dimensional problem, right? You want to still have an ag program that remains a holistic and certified ag program. So you have to teach all of these certain courses, right? So it's great, you could say, well, I can get away with one teacher, except that one teacher has to be certified in 12 courses. Again, exaggerating a point. So that's the other dimension of figuring out the staffing that needs to factor in. It isn't solely just about the number of students. We've got to look at, do we have the right teachers to teach the courses? So all that needs to be done before we get to the point where we're back where we were prior to referendum, looking at a business case we all believe is representative and viable.
Michael?
Just to step away from the numbers for 1 second, if we look at the history of the ag programs in the state of Connecticut, if approved, we would be number 19, correct?
20.
20, okay. So that means that there are 19 other ag STEM programs out there in the state of Connecticut. Granted, they haven't opened a new one in some time. In fact, I think the last one opened when? 89? Okay. So in your research about those other 19 ag STEM programs, have you found anything about our catchment area that would put us at a disadvantage? In other words, is our catchment area significantly smaller in terms of the number of towns or the number of the potential pool of students that we're looking to attract compared to the other 19?
You know, we haven't done a full research project, but certainly when you see the amount of students, which is 8,300 and something in the area, and we only need, you know, between 180 and 200 in that area, it's not loads of students. And I do believe that students are going to want to come here. I mean, it's a brand new school. It's going to have state-of-the-art programs. It's a wonderful area. I mean, who doesn't want to, you know, drive up here every day? And I mean, there are just so many things that attract kids to Shepaug. Right. And I think it's more than just our school. I see it as really something to bring people into the communities. I see, as the mom from Danbury said, this is going to expose a lot of people to Shepaug and to Bridgewater, Roxbury, and Washington, I think there are a lot of pluses
Oh,
to get people to come.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I feel that since we do have a very vocal minority who does not believe in the program, there has to be a reason that the other 19 have been viable and are succeeding. So it might behoove us to do a little bit of research there. I can't imagine each one of those 19 is losing money, for example. I can't believe that. And so I would love to get that research, to have that handy. I think that would be very interesting for us to know, because my guess is that there are 19 successful programs out there. So what is the likelihood that for some strange reason, this one would be the one that wouldn't succeed? I can't believe that that would be the case.
Work on that. That would be good information to share.
Yeah, thank you.
Alan?
So Valerie had heard rumors. Can somebody dispel those or figure out why they got misinterpreted? This talk about subsidizing transportation, so we can put that to rest?
I would love to see that dispelled.
Anybody know where that came from? It's not correct? There's no...
Speaking for myself, I have no knowledge of that. I have never said anything like that to anyone. I have no knowledge of that.
Yeah, I hadn't heard it. I hadn't heard it either. And Pat, that's something you know about, or
this was quite impassioned. It was going.
Well, people get excited.
Ripping through the community. It was breaking news, and I said if that was the case, I would protest vigorously. And I've never heard any such thing. But that's why information is king. What we're doing
the vacuum
here,
gets filled otherwise with speculation.
yeah, what we're doing here is really, really good. We have a basis to begin, looking again at numbers, looking at our costs. And by the way, Bob, Pat, you've done terrific work here, and I appreciate it again and again and again. But we have to do it. The state says to do it, to make a change, but they support us, and that's all we need to know.
Not to belabor this meeting, but I would say to Alan, you know what? If I went to a school and I said, you put 40 students in a school bus and we'll pay for the bus, I'd take that deal any day.
Oh,
Huh?
no, don't start that rumor.
I would take that deal any day. If I could put $400,000 in a bus and it cost me 50 grand a bus in both ways, wouldn't bother me at all. That's what you call good business.
I think.
I think we found the source.
All right, is there anyone else on this issue? All right, Pat, thank you for the information. A lot to digest here.
Where's our
All right, moving on.
Moving on.
Item 10, establish graduation date for Shepaug class of 2017, which is proposed to be June 17, 2017. Greg?
I move that we establish
Oh,
the graduation
yippee
date
hooray.
for Shepaug class of 17 as June 17, 2017.
Second.
All right, Alan seconds. Is there any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, it passes. That's the graduation date. Item 11, action items. And for the new board members, what we've done here is when we have issues that come up in a meeting and we want to make sure that we're asking questions or we're looking for further information, we put it on an action item to report back. So 11.1 was remaining efforts to expunge old logo. Dr. Cosentino.
Expunge is strong.
Yes, I do want to let you know, I guess the best thing I can say to you is if you see something, say something. Matt Parachi has sent out the new logo to all coaches, to anybody who has a club. We have gone through the website as best we can. The Alumni Association is currently using the old logo, and they are changing it immediately. They're working on that to the new one. I did, just for your information, because I knew it might come up at some point, I did ask Matt to give me an update on the uniforms for the teams. So currently, if we wanted to change or update the uniforms for the team, at high school, it would cost us $61,586.
That old logo.
And at the middle school, it will cost $27,745. So that is on hold right now.
you.
But, you know, what we do is we have a rotation of uniforms, and as they expire, you know, that's what we're doing. I know, I just want to give, Mr. Amato just wanted to say something fast about,
Yeah, we kind of lost the agenda in the beginning, Jim, about skipping around, which I completely understand and compassionate as well. We all want to go home. But there is something that was actually very, very timely, and I'll figure out how to share this digitally. But anyone who subscribes to the Wall Street Journal could look at this past weekend's edition. There was a very interesting article that will, if this program goes forward, be alive and well here somewhere in this building. And it's about a new line of urban farming taking hold in the Bushwick Center area of Brooklyn. And what it really is about, and I'll let you read it, but it's called fish tank farming, and it's a closed loop system, and they talk about how it's all hydro. I heard you guys talking about hydroculture, or is it hydroponics? Hydroponics.
Aquaponics.
Well, aquaponics. Thank you. Okay. It's one of the above, where it's a closed-loop system where you're growing plants in water that's fed from nutrients that are pulled out of a fish pond that's treated and recycled back into the plants. It's quite interesting and quite a little business that's starting to boom, but I was very excited about the idea that we could actually see this working in real time here at Shepaug. And then they talked about what they're doing with the crops and the farm-to-table concept, and you could just run with this. And the last comment was, again, actually in today's journal, was a whole section about the food industry and the hot new trends. And again, I invite you to, if you can find it online or if you subscribe to it, but it covers everything from, you know, what's the latest exotic fruits that are being grown and why, to trends in the agri-science or businesses. And, you know, to me, this is why we started this whole conversation about this program. And I think somebody said early on when we were talking about with marketing ideas about the Ag STEM program, I still love Mr. Shear's tagline is, "It's not your father's VOAG program." And I think there is still a connotation of ag, of VOAG, you know, it's not like a work, yeah, we'll have the farm aspect of traditional VOAG, but this is all cutting edge, and that's where, you know, industry is going. It's very exciting. Wanted to share that with everybody. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Jim?
Yes.
Speaking of Brooklyn, we skipped over 4.2. If you could just tell us about the senior project workday, Coney Island.
oh, that was in the consent. It already happened, and we just put it on there for your information. It was a senior project. One of the kids went down there to do some work with Mrs. Davies, and I'm not 100% sure exactly what they did. I think it was something with wildlife and the water, if my memory serves me right. I can get that information for you. But it's done, and it was successful. And then,
All right. So we're done with 11.1, 11.2, superintendent's goals.
right, so I think that last meeting, you had my goals. We didn't make any changes. I think if the board were to approve them, the next step will be to, I will try to set up a meeting with the 4 people on the committee to see if we can make a progress of moving forward for process for timeline and the end of the year eval and all that stuff. And Rebecca and I went to a meeting last week that gave us more information. So they just have to be approved if they're good with everybody.
Should we do that tonight?
I'm sorry?
Can we do that tonight?
Yeah.
Action items, that counts like a
Yeah.
Is the
item, right?
committee prepared to recommend that they be approved?
I would.
I have,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
they were handed out last week,
Yeah.
or last, whatever. 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Can I make
Somebody
a
make a
motion?
motion?
I'm sorry, Michelle.
Jeez. Poor Michelle.
I'm sorry.
We look so much alike. I'd like to move we approve the superintendent's goals as presented at our previous meeting. I don't remember the date, sorry.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Anthony?
Just one. Pat, on 4 and 8, I think in our last discussion, we talked about adding target dates to those. So I just heard you say that we were going to get back together and calendarize things. So if we could just remember
Okay.
to, to deal with that.
Yeah, well, the number 8 has a date. They're presenting, I believe, in December at the meeting.
Oh, you're right. I'll take
Okay?
that back.
So I just
so
so
just
you
4
know
then.
that. And
So-
then 4, right, okay,
To
well,
do
yeah.
yeah.
We started that tonight, but we can continue that, yes.
Yeah, so I'm not suggesting that we put that into the motion, but
Okay.
I just want to make a note of that.
Yep.
That was it.
All right, any other discussion? It's been moved and seconded to approve the superintendent's goals as handed out at the last meeting. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, it passes unanimously. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Can I ask,
Oh, I'm sorry, yes? Yes?
no.
If they've, well, hold on. It's a fair point. If they've read the goals and are familiar with them, I guess they could vote in favor. If they haven't seen them, they really should abstain, in my
I'll
estimation.
abstain. I did not read the goals.
Thank you for raising that.
Thank you.
Jim, can I ask a quick question about,
All right, so it's 2 abstains, everyone else approved. Valerie?
when you look at me, you look with such disdain.
I'm not, believe
Have
me.
you noticed that?
I thought it was me who was looking at.
Not yet. Sit next to me, it'll happen. Pat, the 24th, the retreat, could you tell us what's going to happen and if we're...
I will resend the agenda, but on the 24th at 6 p.m., the administrators will be here, as well as Joe Sarasulo, who's the executive director of CAPS, Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents, and Charles Rothenberger, who is from a government policy group in Hartford. I don't have it in front of me. One of the names is Rome Lutz, and something else. And we have an agenda, and it came from questions that you all raised, which I don't have in front of me, but basically I know one of them was superintendent evaluation, one of them was the CJEF versus REL and how that impacts us, one was navigating DAS, one was how to run efficient board meetings without cutting people off, and this one other, and I don't remember what it is offhand, but I will send that to you. Light dinner will be served, and that'll be 6 o'clock next week here.
Is there anything else? Motion to adjourn? Thank you all.
Thank you.